informarte y recuperarte. Las actualizaciones sobre los servicios básicos se publicarán en miamidade.gov. También puedes llamar al 311 para recibir información antes, durante y después de una tormenta.
Continuons à parler pour aider avant, pendant et après une tempête. Assurez qu'on planifie d'avance avec guide officiel préparation pour cyclone. Il y a toute information besoin de la donner pour chaque étape d'un cyclone. Application mobile Ready Miami-Dade gratis et lié de préparer, suivre et récupérer. Toute dernière information est disponible dans miamidade.gov. Restez connecté lors des centres contact 311 contre Miami-Dade pour toute information avant, pendant et après une tempête.
Est-ce que mettre un masque aide sauver la vie? Il y a des gens qui pensent que c'est une théorie. Il y a d'autres qui connaissent c'est bon gens la science. Mettre un masque aide à empêcher les gens qui ont COVID-19 de partager avec l'autre monde. Fait partie pour là, aider à sauver la vie.
Okay, good morning and welcome to the COVID-19 special meeting of September 30th, 2020. Everybody is popping on right now. We'll start with a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll move into the roll call. Will everyone please stand for a moment of silence? Amen. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Commissioner Bogo. Commissioner Levine Cava.
Present.
Commissioner Diaz. Commissioner Hayman.
Here.
Commissioner Higgins. Commissioner Jordan.
Here.
Commissioner Martinez.
Present.
Commissioner Monestein.
Here.
Commissioner Moss.
Here.
Commissioner Soto.
Here.
Commissioner Suarez. Chairwoman, you have 10 members present and you have a quorum.
Okay, did you call the vice chair?
I'm sorry, Vice Chairwoman Sosa and Chairwoman Edmonds, and I saw you on screen. I apologize.
Okay, I think she's here. Is the vice chairwoman here?
Yes, I am, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we do have a quorum. Okay, thank you. I think we have about 3 or 4 speakers. Yinka, is it Yinka that we have today? Who do we have today?
We have 2 speakers at this time.
Okay. Reasonable opportunity for the public to be heard is open.
Albert Childress, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address for the record and begin speaking. You have 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Albert Childress.
Okay.
Albert Childress, please unmute your microphone.
Yes, I was just observing today. I don't need to speak. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you.
Evelio Torres, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address for the record and begin speaking. You have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Evelio Torres, and I'm the President and CEO of the Early Learning Coalition of Miami-Dade and Monroe. I wanted to speak on item number 4, which is the special fund to assist adult and child care programs, specifically as it relates to child care programs. I want to thank the commissioners for taking on this item, and especially Commissioner Levine Cava for bringing it up. It's critical in this community that we support our early learning programs. As parents have to go back to work, we find many of these programs, and we have to recognize that the majority of them are small family-owned businesses that are really struggling at this point. They have a lot of fixed costs that haven't changed, insurance, mortgage or rents, and they are struggling like everyone else with very low attendance. There was an article in the paper today about Miami-Dade College facing the same situation where our early learning programs are no different. They are really struggling at this point to keep their doors open. And I think in order for us to get the economy back on its feet, in order for parents to be able to go back to work as more employers are recalling staff back to work, parents are going to need a safe and nurturing place to leave their children while they are also learning at these early learning programs. So again, in support of this item, I think it's really important that in our community, we do everything possible to support these small businesses that also provide a vital service to the working families as well as to the children, getting them ready to enter kindergarten. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to all of you this afternoon.
And thank you, sir. Is that it?
One more, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Max Rothman. Max Rothman, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address for the record and begin speaking. You have 2 minutes, Max.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Max Rothman. I am the Executive Director of the Alliance for Aging, the Area Agency on Aging for Miami-Dade and Monroe counties. I live at 791 Crandon Boulevard in Key Biscayne. I was asked to participate in this afternoon's session in order to lend whatever assistance the Alliance can provide concerning the administration of funding for adult daycare centers. We are, of course, a funding agency for adult daycare in this community, and we have the structure to enable the Alliance to assist the county in this regard. We have, of course, been working very closely with county officials since COVID-19 began back in March, and continue to carry out all of our responsibilities in close coordination with county officials, particularly as it relates to meals for older people as well as adult daycare. So I just wanted to add my support for your effort and to offer whatever assistance we can provide in that regard. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Is that it?
Madam Chair, there are no more callers on Zoom at this time.
Okay. The reasonable opportunity for the public to be heard is now closed, and we'll go right into the mayor's report.
You can turn your hunt roof off. Oh.
My microphone is on. Okay, again, we'll move right into special item number 1, which is the mayor's report. I understand that he has to leave early, but will be returning. So is the mayor on?
Madam Chair, before the mayor, I just want to make sure I'm on.
Oh, that's Commissioner Diaz's voice?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Madam Clerk, can you show him as present?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And County Attorney, I see your hand is up as well.
Yes, Madam Chair, I just wanted to advise, we have a couple of preliminary matters, some requests for additional requests for co-sponsorship. For special item number 4 and special item number 5, Senator Soto would like to be listed as a co-sponsor. And other than those matters, there are no additional changes to your final printed agenda, so motion to set the agendas in order.
Okay, can I get a motion to set?
I move.
Okay, it's been moved and second by the chair. Anyone wish to record no on the setting of the agenda? Okay, that we will follow the agenda as written. Is the mayor here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you're on special item number 1.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the County Commission. An update on what's happening with coronavirus here in Miami-Dade County. We continue to see a decrease in the positivity rate and also hospitalizations, although we have seen somewhat of a leveling off of the decrease in the last couple of days. We have around 300 people that are in the hospital with the coronavirus. We have over 100 people still in ICU, and we have less than 100 people that are actually on ventilators. That's really great news from the highs that we have over 2,300 people in our hospitals with the coronavirus. We have plenty of capacity right now, and so the trend is good, but we have to maintain our vigilance, and we have to keep our foot on the gas. Let's say. Last Friday, the governor issued an order that usurped some of our rules, and we had to. On Friday and Saturday, I met with Palm Beach, Broward, and Monroe counties, and not only with them, but also their administrators and also the attorneys for Broward, Palm Beach, and Monroe, alongside with our attorneys from Miami-Dade, to figure out exactly what the order meant and how we could deal with and issue orders of our own without violating the governor's orders. And so the governor's orders I will, this is not all of it, but this is what it actually did. It mandated 100% capacity for restaurants and those businesses that have a food license, And so it mandated 100% occupancy for that, unless one and two. If you were going to impose some kind of restrictions on that occupancy, then you have to, one, outline what the financial impact could be, and B, why it was, the reasons why you were imposing limitations on restaurants and those businesses that have food services licenses. The governor's order also said that for those areas that are giving the civil citations for not wearing masks, that the collection on those citations will be halted until after the period of this of the emergency. So sometime in the future, when the emergency is lifted, you can collect on that, but you can't collect on it now. So we wanted to know what that did to us in terms of our ability to enforce. Also, what that did to us with our ability to close down restaurants, et cetera. And apparently the order did not include commercial establishments. And this is for individuals. The governor's order also stated that no individual business type, and what I mean by business type, grocery stores, restaurants, bars, nightclubs, you couldn't unilaterally just close them. You could impose restrictions on them, but you can just say, no, they're closed. And so a whole lot of different businesses were open because of the governor's order. And so Saturday night, I signed an order which reinstituted some limits and some rules on restaurants and those facilities, those businesses that have a license to serve food, a food service license. And those restrictions are, yes, restaurants could go to 100% capacity, or those businesses that have food service license could go to 100% capacity as long as the tables were 6 feet apart. In other words, you can maintain physical distancing of 6 feet between tables, and you had the restrictions on the table size, no bigger than 6 people to a table if they're not from the same household, and up to 10 people if they are from the same household. Now, all the other restaurants that could not achieve, let's say, 50% capacity with the requirement for a 6-foot separation, the governor's order said that you must at least have 50% capacity. So in those particular cases, those restaurants are allowed to have their tables closer to one another, closer than 6 feet, as long as they reach the 50%, what we call the floor. Once they reach that 50% capacity, they can't add any more tables. Those restaurants that have a lot of space could add and could go above the 50% threshold up to 100%, but they had to maintain 6-foot separation. Patrons that went into the restaurant could remove their masks once they were seated, but they had to put their masks at any time that they open up. And again, this is not just for restaurants; it's for any food service, licensed facility. If you stand up, you can't walk around without a mask, so you have to put on your mask. So even if you're a bar that serves food and you are operating basically as a restaurant, the patrons there can't walk around with a drink in their hands. We had already instituted. Excuse me a second. It appears that my dogs really don't like that part of the order, and so they made their opinion known to me. And so I think I was at where if you stood up, if you're standing up, you can't stand up and not have a mask, and that includes bars, nightclubs, etc. Even on nightclubs now that you have dance floors that are open, you have to wear your mask. And so that's, in essence, and one final thing, if you have live entertainment or music, again, the music can't be any louder than that would impede our ability to have a normal conversation without somebody having to yell at each other, because that we have found out is a pretty dangerous activity. The more you exert, the more particles come out, and the harder that you have to talk or yell or scream, then the more virus gets in the air if you're actually contagious, and that's something that we don't want. And so we do have a decibel level. It basically says, hey, if I can't speak to you in a normal tone, that music is too loud. It has to be reduced, and that's across the board in Miami-Dade County, whether it be in a business, in a restaurant, in a lounge, in adult entertainment, whatever. That's the rule.
Video.
We also have eased up a little bit on our parks. In our park system, although we're not opening up our daycare or our playgrounds for children in our parks, there are businesses that have that as part of their business. They're allowed to do that as long as the equipment is clean. And again, my dogs are really upset about that particular aspect of the rules, so they're making their opinion known. All right, so in addition to that, we have stated to municipalities that we don't have a closing time for parks anymore. Our parks will be closing at 10 o'clock. The curfew, the 11 o'clock curfew, still remains in effect. In terms of sports, we're allowing league play for all different kinds of sports to commence. You don't have to wear a mask while you're actually participating inside. When you're playing, as soon as you come out, you do need to wear a mask. If you're in a pickup kind of situation where it's not really a league, it's just a pickup situation, you still have to wear a mask, whether it be basketball, football, whatever it is you're playing on a pickup kind of scenario, that still has to be wearing a mask. We are now producing rules for our adult daycare, which are now have the ability to open, and we are working with ACA to develop those rules. Also, the same thing with our adult community centers. They can open. It doesn't mean, though, that if you are a municipality or the county and you actually have an adult daycare, provide that kind of service, that you must open. That doesn't mean that. It means that those private entities, we can no longer tell them that they're closed. They have to have the ability to open. And that's all across the board. Most of the regulations that we have are 50% capacity. You have to wear your mask indoors and out. Our enforcement, we had a briefing with our staff. We are focusing on enforcement, mainly on the businesses, but individuals can still get citations. Individual can still be cited as a second-degree misdemeanor. We're serious about enforcing the rules that we have. We have to continue to drive the message that wearing the mask, physical separation, and our doctors don't want us to say social distancing anymore. They want to say physical separation of 6 feet, and wearing the mask and washing your hands is still the number one way to combat this virus. We are not out of the woods. Most experts that I've spoken to expect a second wave. They expect it to be coming in the fall. It is our duty to try to keep this contagion level down as much as possible, keep our positivity rates as much as possible, to smooth out that wave, so that wave does not exceed the capacity of our healthcare system. Talking to some CEOs of the healthcare system, they are being proactive, and they are releasing patients to go back home to create capacity in anticipation of a possible second wave. Our hope is that second wave doesn't come, but in order to make sure that second wave doesn't come, we will continue, and we will now be, enforcing the rules that we have in a strict manner, especially with businesses. If businesses think that somehow the rules are gone, they're mistaken. We'll be there. We will be enforcing those rules, and if you don't abide by them, we will be able to shut you down, and we can shut you down. We want to educate you first. We'll cite you second, and if you don't learn, then we're going to have to shut you down. And so, Madam Chair, that's the report. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Also, Jennifer, who has the particulars on the orders, can answer any questions from the commission. And as you stated in about 10 minutes, I'm going to have to go.
Okay. I have a queue with Commissioner Hayman and then Commissioner Levine-Copper. Commissioner Hayman, you recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mayor, I was hoping when you spoke about a curfew remaining in place, your dogs would have stormed the room and sieged presence on the camera. I am very thankful for the contemplative work you've put into it. I am absolutely opposed to the governor just lock, stop, making decisions contrary to what I think were contemplative decisions, working with our rates and the unique nature of populations such as Miami-Dade County. My concern is when we have compliance, and now that a change of behavior is dictated by the state for allowing certain venues to open up more and whatever, the hours, the curfew. We have a culture down here that is late in eating. I've never seen kids start dinner at 9 o'clock, but it happens in some cultures. And we have restaurants that have severely been impacted since March, and they've been totally in compliance, shutting down, then opening up only for outside deliveries and takeouts, and conforming to distance and mask and percentages and everything else, working with you on your task force. I am still hearing that 11 o'clock means by 9:15, no more orders can be processed because the kitchens have to finish up, serve out, get them out before 10 o'clock, and move people out of the restaurants so then staff can start closing down before curfew at 11 o'clock that affects them. If we have entire industries that have been in compliance, can't we do something for these restaurants that are still hurting? And now the percentages will be there, but they have a late hour trade. Maybe you could say restrict certain things, but allow them to stay open longer if they have not been the problem. And that is an ongoing thing. I know you heard it from your task force. You heard it from some of the people that I know that are in your task force. And that remains a point of contention. If you could speak to that. This is an hour thing. It isn't a behavior thing. And if we have responsible oversight at these venues, these restaurants still need help. So thank you.
Commissioner, we thought about that, especially now with the Heat being in the finals, and you would think that people are going to try to get to restaurants and all that and watch the games. And some of these games start at 9 o'clock. They probably don't end until about 11:30 or so. However, when I spoke to our medical advisors and also the White House, they advised against it. They want to see what these measures that we are taking on now, how that's going to affect the community before we move the curfew back. I would certainly think that if we somehow stay steady for the next 10 days or so, that we can move the back to 12 o'clock. That's the advice that I'm getting from our doctors, Commissioner. All right. And I listen to the medical advice and I listen to the experts, not only from here, but from the White House too. And so I understand that. Remember, it's also the same argument. They said, hey, if you move it back to 11, we can turn another table. Now we moved it back to 11. Oh, wait a minute. Now we got to move it back to 1. I will bet you my bottom dollar that once we move it back to 12, they'll say, we really got to move it back to 1 because this, that, and the other. And so, yeah, let's do that. We moved it back to 11. Let's take a little while longer. We got to see what this does, and then we can move it back to 12.
Well, Maybe the one last thing is there's a difference between people who dine at a restaurant and sit and eat and ones that go to sports bars to watch the Heat games and other things. So maybe if it was conditional that.
I can't do an exception for a restaurant and not a sports bar. So once you open the restaurant, you got to open the sports bar at 12 o'clock too. So remember, this is not a exception to a curfew for one. It's an exception. Now everybody can be open to 12 o'clock. And that's an issue too. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Okay, the mayor is going to have to leave in about 5 minutes. Commissioner Carver, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to emphasize that this is another example of preemption by the state of our local decision-making. So regrettable, so out of touch with what we know is needed here locally. I want to thank you, Mayor, for staying the course best you can with the masking and the precautions. We know the virus is still with us. And while we are glad to open the economy, we all must exercise all of the precautions that are outlined. And I think it's critical to maintain those messages. Also, we've heard the difficulty, I think our last meeting, with tracing, contact tracing, and how many are avoiding giving that information. And I think it's really important, especially as we reopen now more than ever. We do not discourage people from testing. There's ample testing capacity now. The rapid tests around the corner, and we need to test, and we do need to trace, because that is the only way to isolate and determine who needs to be isolated to avoid further contagion. So again, we have already on the books our strong anti-preemption mandates and lobbying accordingly, and this is unfortunately a very disruptive form of preemption. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Moss?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I too want to lend my voice as it relates to the issue of preemption. I found that the decisions that came down at the very last minute, to be extremely unsettling and not really giving, local governments the opportunity to respond to some of the stuff. And I guess my question to you, Mr. Mayor, is where are the medical experts on the overall governor's decision to just open up the economy? What did they have to say about that? I was not in that meeting.
Both sets were not happy, and both Washington and ours. They thought we were on the right path and we were opening up in the right sequence, and this kind of threw us off a little bit. We're still working within the framework of what the governor has outlined. There were some obstacles that we had to jump, and there were some questions that we had to answer, especially from the legal side, with regards to how do we quantify financial impact, how do we justify those things that we're doing. But apparently those were not big obstacles. We just didn't need to know what the heck that meant, okay? And so once we found out, or felt like we found out what that meant, then it wasn't a big jump. The enforcement aspect, I think, is probably the thing that the inability to collect kind of takes away. The discipline follows something called the hot stove rule. Hot stove rule means that it's when you touch a hot stove, it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to get burned. And it's also immediate, so that you get burned right away. You don't touch a hot stove and then 2 months later, hey, I got burned. It has to happen, right away. And so, not being able to collect, it kind of defeats that purpose. We're not here to make money because we really, frankly, haven't cited that many people. It's just the threat that you can get cited. As we've had a lot of people comply, and frankly, we have the majority of the people of Miami-Dade are actually good people that are following the rules because that keeps them safe. But there are some people that won't and will not, and those are the ones that you need to discipline with the fines. And so, basically, we have to revert back to the original fines that we had, which were misdemeanors. We are still going to be issuing the civil citations. We're just holding off on collection And if people think that somehow we're not going to be issuing citations, they're wrong. We will be. Either a second-degree misdemeanor or a civil citation. Businesses, our focus is going to be on businesses. Some businesses think that, hey, it's over. We can do whatever we want. We can stay open as long as we want. We can have 100% of the people here. They don't have to wear masks. And our message has been, no, that's not true. And we're going to go out and we're going to educate. And then we're going to, once we educate you and tell you, hey, this is what you got to do, we come back again, then enforcement is going to take place. And so our police department is going to be out there. I had a meeting just before this meeting with the League of Cities. We discussed, our options. We discussed what the rules meant, and I asked them to please enforce the rules. They are all on board with what we want to do. So we're united, and the rules are going to be very consistent throughout Miami-Dade County. And so that's good. Okay. And again, I think we're going to enforce these rules because we need to.
And let me just say that I'm very glad that you were able to meet with the league and that we're all on the same page. We don't want to have, the kinds of stuff go on that has gone on previously where, the county is saying one thing and then the league is out saying something else and that sort of thing. We all need to be on the same page because this is about trying to protect the interests, and the safety of our residents here in Miami-Dade County. And I just want to say to the attorney and to the board that we have to be prepared to do what we need to do, if we feel like, our rights are being violated here as the local governing board here in Miami-Dade County. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I'm gonna have to leave now for a while.
Okay, and
something that was previously scheduled. I'll be back. Don't worry, Joe. I'll be back. Okay. I know you're really disappointed. Okay.
Who can answer questions on your behalf?
Jennifer can answer all the questions. If it's a rule that you like, I'm the one that thought of it. If it's not something that you don't like, then she's the one that thought of it. Okay.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Diaz, you're up. You're recognized. Commissioner Diaz, you need to unmute yourself.
Try it. There we go. Better?
Better.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer, I just heard the mayor and I understand wholeheartedly and the way everything's been done and is to really life safety and making sure that people are protected at all times. And I think all of us concur on that. At the same time, as the numbers keep dwindling down, thank God, and everything's happening. I heard what Commissioner Heyman said earlier. The issue is exactly what she said. A lot of restaurants, a lot of our community, a lot of the people, this is a tourist industry that's huge that we live from. And a lot of the restaurants and facilities and clubs or whatever, bars, whatever that entertainment section is, especially the beach and many of the areas, it's important that at least the people get some kind of like a tier type thing. I know we went to 11 o'clock, but it's true what Commissioner Heyman said before. A lot of these restaurants really cater to people that don't even come out until 11 o'clock at night, or people that go out for entertainment purposes or whatever. And a lot of the tourists also, I know many of the Argentinians, many of the people like that, they're accustomed to eat very late at night. So there's a little bit of everything. We live in a community that's blessed in many ways, and in this county. But at the same time, we got to look at those businesses, how we could at least find a way that they could hope that if it continues to go down within a period of time, it could, we could kind of move into a later time. So these businesses could actually start maybe turning a profit or doing better. And I think it's important for our community to look at all aspects of it. Now, maintaining the safety in every form that has been stated. I think that in honesty, we got to look at the full spectrum of it. And if maybe we could get some kind of a commitment, because look, in Monroe County, there is no curfew. Broward still has a curfew. Everywhere else in the state of Florida, there is no curfew. I checked earlier, and unless somebody could tell me differently, there's no other county that has a curfew except us in Broward. And I understand why. And the mayor was very clear in explaining it. I just trying to see a way that we could maybe somehow tier into another way. So Jennifer, if you could help me with that.
Sure, Commissioner. As the mayor said, what our medical experts are concerned about is doing too many things all at once, so that if you do see a change in an increase in the number of positive cases or an increase in hospitalizations, we can more closely identify exactly what caused it to happen. And so when we asked them specifically about the curfew, they suggested we wait a couple weeks, see if we have any changes based on the actions that happened this last weekend. And then if we're still stable, then we can consider moving the curfew. And I think the mayor mentioned that as well, maybe in 10 or 14 days, somewhere in there, if we see that the rate of positivity has stayed stable, it can be something that we can consider then.
And good. That's the kind of message I think some of these places that again cater to the later crowds need to hear, that at least there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So I appreciate it, and thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Martinez, then Bobo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm probably going to save it all for when the mayor comes back. But just to prep me for it, Ms. Moon, what is the actual purpose of the curfew? What is the intent?
The intent of the curfew is really to keep people from being out late and gathering. It was really just to try to modify behavior and keep people from gathering.
Because up until Friday, when bars and everything was closed, it really had nothing. I was always curious as to why we had a curfew, because it's not enforced. It's impossible to enforce it. If you ask your police director, he will tell you it doesn't achieve anything. And I was in agreement some of those weekends when the Memorial Days and this and that, you're going to get crowds, and it was an easy way to control a lot of things. But right now, from a law enforcement perspective, it really doesn't do anything. It's just we have a curfew. But what it does do is it does hurt a lot of the businesses that we have been told to open. So I have an issue, a really big issue with the curfew, because it just doesn't seem like it shows me anything. This isn't what you did. I'll wait for the mayor to get back. But it doesn't, I like you. But it really doesn't do anything other than to say, hey, we have a curfew. This thing of we're killing the mom and pop hole in the wall restaurants with the 6 feet spacing. The ones who really cannot afford it, those are the ones we're killing. So I'll just wait for the mayor to come back, Madam Chair, if you will allow me. These meetings when we're talking, is this the last meeting we're going to be talking from home, Madam Chair?
No, it depends on what happens. I won't say it's the last, and I won't say it isn't.
Okay, because we talk a lot when we're at home. Anyways, I'll wait for him to come back if you will allow me the latitude to bring these items up to the mayor later on. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Bobo, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And just bear with me. I'm kind of walking into a situation office. Jennifer, just for clarification, how much have been consulted with on these remedies that were prescribed?
Commissioner, you're breaking up. Jennifer, did you understand him?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
Yeah, hold on. Because I'm sorry, because I had this choking mask on that didn't allow me to speak clearly. Jennifer, how much have businesses, the local businesses, have been included in the dialogue so that we could get to, writing these rules for businesses? How much have they been involved, and how much have they been consulted with as they decide the prescription that we've laid out as far as spacing inside the location.
When we were originally putting the protocols together for specific industries, we gathered representatives of those industries. We had several different groups. We had groups from retail, groups from wholesale and logistics, groups from restaurants, et cetera. Those are the guidelines we've had in place.
Gerald Sanchez, can you please mute yourself? Thank you. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Those are the guidelines that we've had in place for a while. When we were preparing, before we got the governor's order, we were preparing actually to open bars, and we had a group of bar owners get together with us to help us understand their business and what might make sense in terms of, you know, whether or not bar counters would be open, what their facilities were like, what would work well. And we were preparing to put that order out, and then we were preempted by the governor. Because we were quickly preempted by the governor, we had to get something out within 24 hours. And so basically, it's really the rules that were already in place that we have now adjusted only for specifically to the restaurants to allow for the up to 100% capacity, but requiring the social distancing and to go to no less than 50%. So as an example, I know Commissioner Martinez mentioned the very small restaurants. They are allowed to reduce the physical distancing in order to allow 50% capacity in their facilities. Other than that, we haven't really changed the rules that we had in place. And for other industries, such as adult daycares, while we are putting some recommendations together for their operating protocols, what we're asking all industries to do is just follow the general guidelines that are in the guidebook that are not overly restrictive, but they do require facial coverings, physical distancing, HVAC protocols, which are very important to be able to make sure that the air, if you're in an interior space, that the air is being circulated as much as possible, and cleaning protocols. And so those are the most critical things. And then a business can be open.
Yeah, I don't really have an issue with the all the protocols as far as cleaning and what healthcare experts have recommended to us. Where I think there's been a disconnect, and I will concur with Commissioner Martinez. There's a lot of small operators that just can't comply. It's just for them to tell them where they've got 6 tables inside their business and tell them you got to do it 3. It just is not working, and many of them don't have the capacity outside. I hope, and we have talked about this in the past, that we are flexible with a lot of our regulations as far as allowing people to sit people outside. And give them as much flexibility and be able to help them, because at the end of the day, while absolutely the health care of our residents should be the number one priority, and by all means is the number one priority, there is also many people that are not working, and that's adding to the mental stress that's going on. I don't know how many of you are in the community like I am, but I'm hearing it, and I'm hearing it loud, where people are getting frustrated. People, want to have some sort of, maybe they're just looking for good news, but they want to feel that they're being consulted with. I'm not in agreement with the state ever usurping our authority. I've never liked it. Doesn't matter to me what party's in power. We need to be able to navigate this thing on our own. I would hope that there's better communication between the administrations so that we could, not get caught by surprise. But, I want us to be more mindful of these small businesses. And one last thing, I was going to ask it during the League of City meeting, Jennifer, and I had to get off the line. We allow gyms to be open, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then why aren't we allowing the exercise equipment in some of our parks for seniors to be able to use it? I'm getting a lot of chatter from seniors at Amelia Earhart. They want to be able to use the equipment there.
They can.
You know,
The
they
most
can
recent,
now?
The most recent EO lifted those restrictions, yes.
Oh, you just gave me good news for all those residents who've been calling me. I appreciate it. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Madam Chair.
That was the mayor's decision, because remember, the good ones he did.
Well, he's not online, so he can't take credit for it. All right.
Okay. Vice Chairwoman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you allow me, I have a question based on the pandemic and everything that have happened. Jennifer, do we have any update in terms of the preparation of the chambers for commission meetings in a safe way, not only for the commissioners, the attorneys, everyone, and the public with the proper infrastructure? How long it's going to take to prepare the chamber for that, so we don't have moving to the future to spend money somewhere else, and we prepare the chamber properly with the tables expanded, wall to wall? Where do we stand on that?
I believe Tara Smith is prepared to answer that question. I don't know if she needs to be brought over into the meeting.
I think she will have to be. That's the only way you can get an answer. But while I'm here, I'm not going to go into the chambers just yet because I think it's too small. But
it's not ready.
But if Tara's here.
Madam Chair, I agree. They have to think about the air condition, the filters, the preparation. They have to think about everything. So, Tara, do we have
a look to it? Regardless of where we go, it's going to cost money. Whether it's the port, whether it's Dade County Auditorium, and the port will cost more than the Dade County Auditorium. Tara, you want to answer that question?
I will be happy to. Tara Smith, Internal Services Department. We have been looking at this already in anticipation of your upcoming committee week and later BCC meetings. Our biggest challenge, as you already said, is the amount of space for the elected officials at the dais. The HVAC system is in very good condition, believe it or not, in Stephen P. Clark, as evidenced by how cold you guys sometimes get in there. We have the right level of MERV rated filters in that building. So our biggest challenge really is the amount of space at the dais. We can accommodate the public in a safe, socially distanced manner in the seating and with overflow, like we normally would for overflow in the lobby. But there are several considerations we have to think about for the dais. And I've engaged one of our industrial hygienists to give us some recommendations. I'm developing some options for everyone's consideration. I'm also hoping to speak with one of our medical experts to make sure that they review all of the options before I provide them to you. So in the next coming...
But that's not my question. Ms. Smith, that is not my question. You're talking about cleaning, the proper filters, no. I'm talking about physically. We will have to invest in infrastructure in order to change the U shape of the table, to bring a straight table from wall to wall in order to have the distance and maybe some plastics in between like other places are doing. That is my question. I'm talking about infrastructure right now.
I understand that, and that's what I was referring to. There are short-term and long-term considerations we have to make here. In the short term, I can't rebuild the entire dais. I have an architect in the process of redesigning it, but that will take some time. In the short term, we are looking at the dais, how we can remove seats from the dais, reposition them in ways that have between 4 and 6 feet in between them with plastic barriers, and running all of those scenarios by our medical and air quality experts to make sure that they're feasible and safe before we present them to you. But yes, there will have to be a physical redesign of the existing space, which will not be the ideal scenario that you're used to having at the dais. There are currently 19 seats at the dais, and based on what I just looked at, we can only safely, if we're using 6 feet in between, fit 11 seats. So we are developing options for your consideration with using plastic barriers and other things to make it a safe environment. possibly using the well area and the outer wings.
Okay, Madam Chair, I think that we need to avoid the bureaucracy of our system and to expedite a reality, because I consulted with a designer who told me, and they measured based on the measurements and everything, 14 people will be able to sit over there with the distance if it's done well. But you will have to remove the columns from the front. But I think that we need to expedite that.
To be very expensive, Commissioner, and right now you all can handle that after I'm gone, because that can be very expensive. I can't see us trying to get that done within this amount of time. So you'll be chair when I'm gone, so that you can take care of that.
Okay, I will continue working with that, because we cannot be paying to have committees and commission meetings out of the chamber all the time. So I hope that, I'm praying that we have a little bit more time to start preparing that. And I'm gonna be very frank publicly, I have underlying conditions that I am not gonna risk my life in a place.
We're risking our life if we're in that small chambers as well.
Oh, no, I am not talking about
point.
No, that's why I'm asking about the remodeling of the chamber in a way that can be safe for everyone, with time to do it. So
okay.
I
can handle that once I'm gone.
I will continue working. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Vice Chair, I'd be very pleased to be able to speak with the architect that you're speaking with. I have an in-house architect who's doing the design as well, so I would love for the two of them to work in collaboration to get it done more quickly.
Okay, thanks, Tara. I jumped to special item number 1 first because I knew the mayor had to leave. And what I would like to do right now, and I understand from the last meeting when the vice chairwoman said that the attorneys told her she could not put her motion out ahead of time. So they allowed me to put the motion out about an hour before this meeting, so everyone should have it. Madam Vice Chair, if you would take over, I need a point of personal privilege, please.
My pleasure, Madam Chair. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to move, and everybody should have this in front of them, that from the $10 million in CARES Act funds previously set aside for vulnerable communities, I move to allocate a total of not to exceed $2,289,000 of such funds to Jesse Trice Community Health System Incorporated to provide assistance to low-income, working poor, and medically uninsured and underinsured residents of Miami-Dade County who have been impacted by the public health emergency caused by COVID-19. I further move to authorize the county mayor or county mayor's designee to negotiate and execute, following approval by the county attorney's office for legal form and sufficiency, a grant or other appropriate agreement with Jesse Trice Community Health System, Inc., and to take all other actions necessary to effectuate the purposes of this motion.
Second the motion.
Okay, it was moved by Chairwoman Edmondson, seconded by Commissioner Jordan. I don't see any hands, any questions. So, Madam Clerk, ready to vote.
Commissioner Levine-Cava?
Yes.
Commissioner Diaz?
Yes.
Commissioner Hayman?
Yes.
Commissioner Higgins?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez? Commissioner Monestein?
Yes.
Commissioner Moss?
Yes.
Commissioner Soto?
Yes.
Commissioner Suarez is absent. Commissioner Bovo? Vice Chairwoman Sosa?
Yes.
Chairwoman Edmondson?
Yes.
Motion.
Can I be a co-sponsor, Commissioner?
Yes,
Madam Chair?
Yes, I would love that.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to be a co-sponsor.
I'll take everybody who wants to co-sponsor.
Cole. Moss, co.
Thank you, Commissioner Moss.
I'll be your co-sponsor.
Thank you, Commissioner Modestine. Okay. And thank you, Vice Chairwoman. We're moving right along. I think this is Ed Marquez, the oral update on coronavirus relief fund.
Good afternoon, Commissioner, Chairwoman and Commissioners. Let me start off by apologizing right off the bat. Unfortunately, I have 2 PowerPoints to go through with you today, but I will go quickly as possible. If I can get the CRF item on, if you can go, this is pretty much following the format that we had last go around with some changes.
Everyone should have this in front of them as well.
Right. We sent this out to all offices earlier today, and the second presentation that I'm going to be giving out, we sent out on Monday. The first, on slide 2, you can see how much in CARES Act money that we have in very broad categories. This differs from the last presentation in that at the last meeting, we had taken $19 million from the $37 million UMSA allocation, and we funded $4 million for food distribution, $5 million to UMSA Greater Miami Convention Visitors Bureau allocation, $5 million to UMSA rent relief, and $5 million to UMSA small business development. And that had an effect of changing the percentages and the amounts around. Next slide. All right. I'm just going to run through each of the grant programs fairly quickly. The Basic Needs Hardship Program with the United Way, total applications to date was 8,945. Total paid out to date was $12,249,000. The $15 million rental assistance program, which is $10 million countywide, and then from the last meeting, $5 million of UMSA. These monies were listed in the ERAP 1 program, and ERAP 1 had $5.1 million approved for payment. It's either has been or is going out the door very shortly. The balance of the ERAP program is with $4.9 million, as well as the $5 million UMSA amount is being recommended at this meeting to be rolled over into the ERAP 2 program. We will still track the full $15 million in this format as that money gets spent. Next slide. This has just changed. From the last meeting, we were going to tell you that you had $10 million available for reallocation from the vulnerable communities, and then $18 million left over in the UMSA programs. It's for a total of 28, but with this action that just occurred, you now have $25.711 million that's available for reallocation to at a lower level if the board so chooses to do so. Slide 5. Okay, we spent approximately $368 million on COVID within Miami-Dade County so far. $177 million will be charged to FEMA as invoices come on in, and $191 million will be charged to the CRF fund, which is $474 million that we have received. Out of these amounts, $116 million went for senior meals. Next slide. All right, the $30 million restaurant grant program handled by SBD. Total applications received to date is 863. We've paid out $1,249,000 with approved loans of grants of 100 items. The $30 million small business program, loan program, which is a revolving loan fund with the Dade County Federal Credit Union, they received 1,872 applications. They made 184 loans at $2.8 million. The $16 million hazard pay for first responders, we will be charging the fund as we incur these expenses between now and December, and the cities will be doing the same for its share. So far, the cities have applied for $258,000 of this amount of money. Next one, the $10 million residential landlord program. The program was launched on September 6th. 228 applications have been received to date. On the $10 million nonprofit program through the Miami Foundation that's handling it. They've received 275 applications. Grants are anticipated to start being awarded come October the 1st, and we'll probably have an update on expenditures for you at our next meeting. $10 million Cultural Affairs Program, Arts Support Program that's handled by Michael Springs Shop. We received 293 applications from organizations, 857 applications from artists and entrepreneurs seeking grants. The grants will all be issued as applications are reviewed and determined to be completed and eligible. That might be 2 to 3 weeks in duration before you see cash go out that door. Next slide. $10 million taxi and jitney. The applications will be received through October the 31st. 163 applications have been received. 11 applications have been approved, and payment will be made in the next coming weeks. The $10 million veteran and active military housing assistance, and the $5 million veteran basic needs program. One's handled by PHCD, and the other one is by the Military Affairs Board. Both programs started in September 11th. As far as the mortgage and rental assistance, you see 37 applications for mortgage, 65 for rental applications. And for basic needs, we got 91 basic needs applications received, and all of these are being processed at this point in time. The $5 million veteran small business program by SBD at the bottom of the sheet started on September 11th, and to date, 65 applications have been received. Next page. The Restaurant Workers Assistance Program handled by FIU in the South Beach Wine and Food Festival. 289 applications have been received. $634,000 have been distributed to restaurants on behalf of their workers. The $3 million hotel training program that's handled by Miami-Dade College was launched on August 24th. As of the 16th, 823 applicants have been registered in the program, and they'll start receiving $500 stipends at the beginning of the training program, and another $500 stipend at the end of the program should they complete the program. Next page. Now, as we go forward, I hope to make these type of presentations a little bit more in chart form, because I think a lot can be said off of a chart, but we're getting our computer systems better hooked up over time. This one is all the applications by programs. You can see that all our programs received a total of 23,000 and change in applications. We've approved 11,327 applications, and we spent a total of $22 million across all programs of these type of programs. Next page. By commission district. These are how we're spending it by commission district. This will change, and the whole intent of us doing this as these programs come up and running is to make sure that we have the information, the staff or the grantors, the grants, the organizations that are doing the grants on our behalf, that they have information real time so that they can see how grants are going out the door, so they can try to keep all districts as equitable as possible. It'll never be exact, but our aim is to be equitable as possible. And you can see how the different programs come on up. Next. Okay. The $100 million municipal grant programs. As you may recall, they were broken up into two pieces. One's a $75 million piece, and the other is a $25 million piece. Regarding the $75 million piece, okay, this is for operations and FEMA match. The municipalities have submitted a guesstimate of $122 million for reimbursement between March the 1st and December 31st. Of these, so far, they've asked for reimbursement to the tune of $15 million, and we've already processed for payment $295,000. Those numbers should be much bigger at the next go-round. Regarding the $25 million program, that's the next presentation I'm going to be doing. We've asked all of the cities to submit proposals for new COVID-19 programs to share a part of the $25 million that the commission allocated for that purpose. We received 59 proposals, of which total 58 million. After the reviews by the consultants and my staff, 50 proposals totaling 54.4 million are CRF eligible. So they're fair game for funding by the commission. Next page. Okay, this is the breakdown of that 293,000 for municipal reimbursements that everyone has to submit paperwork on. Now, some people have asked me why so slow. This is a process. They have invoices that, first of all, they have to decide what invoices, what kind of stuff they want to be paid for by the CARES Act money. Invoices have to be received on their end. They have to package it up and send it to us. We review it. Then it gets put into our portal. Our consultant reviews it. My staff reviews it. Then we okay payment. And then payment, once it's okay, the payments go out the door within 7 to 10 days. So this will be picking up over time. Next slide. This is the end of phase 1, and I apologize for phase 2 coming up. Next presentation. First of all, is there any questions so far?
Commissioner Carver, you're recognized.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ed, for getting this to us. You know, it's a little hard to tell like how much is actually in the hopper to go out, but it would seem clear that some of these funds have not been adequately tapped. So here we are, virtually October, and you know, very, very concerning, I'm sure you are, to make sure that these dollars are expended because the need is so great. So I guess just first to you, Madam Chair, I know you've been scheduling the special meetings. Are you anticipating another special meeting or another opportunity for us to look at some possible reallocations of some of these dollars to make sure we can move them along?
Yes, I am, because the month of October is not here yet, so we'll probably have 1 or 2 in October.
Okay.
Because, like I said before, it depends on what's happening, and let's try to get the signatures together. Because I have been told by the attorneys that if it's an emergency, I can call it on my own, but I still prefer ensuring that we will have a quorum. So that's why I send it out for signatures.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So I will, you know, reserve until that time in the next report, but I guess I would urge that the next report kind of do any projections, if possible, as to what dollars might be fully expended in the category, so we'd be in a better position to look at the reallocation. I also have comments regarding the cities, but I'm going to wait until after that presentation, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Modestine and Diaz. You need to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. Ed, a question about the data you just shared about the taxi program, taxi, limousine, and jitneys. I think you showed around 163 application, 10 has already been approved, 121 in process, and more than 50 denied. If I look at these numbers, this is basically almost a third being denied. That means there must be, considering the nature of the taxi and limousine and jeepneys work and how much they were impacted by the COVID-19, if you have a third of the application denied already after a week and a half or 2 of process, it may mean that this is a very difficult process that they have to follow. Can you walk me into what is it that they have to do? What is it that they have to provide? What is it that makes it more difficult for them? And a third of drivers, taxi drivers, limousine and jeepneys have been denied.
All right.
If I could, Ed, I think that was classified perhaps not correctly. As of today, there were 191 applications, 6 by jitney drivers, 78 by limousine drivers, and 107 by taxi cab drivers. Of those 191, 111 have been reviewed, 10 have been approved, 81 were missing documentation and we're working with the drivers. 20 were denied, but it's because they already received funds through the PPP program, which deems them ineligible for this program. So the only ones that have been denied is because they've received the other federal program funding.
So you're saying the 58 or some that was shown in the chart isn't correct? It's only 20 that's been denied?
I don't have that information. The information I got directly from the department were that 20 have been denied, and it was only because they had received the federal funds through the PPP loan.
Okay. And 100 plus currently in process?
Yeah, 81 were missing documentation, and so we're going back and working with the applicants to make sure that we have all of the documentation that we need to be able to process them.
Okay, but I'm curious I'm a little worried about that documentation because I don't know taxi drivers work with a lot of documentation beside just their, what they call it, their log sheet to show that they were working and they had passengers and their lease agreement maybe, or their agreement with, what possible documentation may that be? I'm curious.
Well, I don't know if the person, if Alice Bravo or the person who is actually working on the project, Raul Gonzalez, is available to come over into the meeting. But precisely because of what you're saying, there's certain documentation that we're going to need to have to be able to get reimbursed to make this CARES Act eligible. And so what we're doing is working with the drivers to figure out how we can get that from them so that the money, so that we can get, so that the program is CARES Act eligible. Because yes, we understand that it's not like other kinds of businesses where there aren't, all of those different kinds of documentation. So we're trying to work with them so that we can help them, get the funding.
Yes. Sounds good.
May I add, Commissioner, the U.S. Treasury requires us to maintain documentation that expenses were incurred so that they can be reimbursed. So it can take any number of variations of expense types that you could be asking for, but there is generally a lot of back and forth between the applicants and the county and the grantor in trying to make sure that they have enough documentation in place. Alice is on the screen.
Yes, good afternoon, Alice Bravo, Director of Transportation and Public Works. We have received phone calls and emails from people in the industry. Apparently they thought that this would be just kind of like a stimulus program where they would get a check in the mail. But unfortunately, we have worked with a consultant to go through the federal requirements. And the federal requirements are that documentation be provided to show that they've been impacted negatively. So, I'm sorry, that's my doorbell. The documentation that we're requesting is income tax returns from the prior year and the current year to show the difference in income level, as well as some bank statements. So in consultation with a consultant, it was that documentation that was required to comply with the federal rules for reimbursement.
Well, I'm sure that the board, and including myself, want the administration to follow the federal rules. I just hope that the type of documentation that is requested from them is not placing an undue burden, because it's things that has not, it's papers that have not that doesn't have anything to do with their work, the type of work they do, and hopefully the organizations that they are contracted with, the taxi companies, maybe can assist in providing all the information that is needed from them. But again, I just want to make sure that those who are greatly burdened by the impact of COVID-19 is not precluded from having the assistance that is required of them, following federal rules, in accordance with federal rules, providing whatever is asked of them is not something that is too difficult for them to provide. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I have.
Okay, Commissioner Diaz, Moss, and Carver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ed, I'll stand your report. I really, it's really detailed in a way that we could stay on top of it. When was the last, when we see these figures, what was the date as of the figures were collected or reported?
We try to get them. We try to get the figures as close to the commission meeting as possible. The last meeting that we had and updated stuff was September 15th, and some of that was as of that day. Like today, some of this information's as of this today. Some of it, others are not as current.
All right, good, because it seems to be moving pretty strong, and congratulations to everybody working together. The issue I have is when the municipalities, because I had one municipality reached out to check on their status, and on the monies that they put through, it is 100% based on first what we did. First, we went ahead and approved what they were going for. Once we did that, then the amount that we will send them would be 100% of what they requested. Am I correct?
Our goal, okay, is to be able to reimburse or give out as grants whatever can be justified and whatever is within our program. Is that answering your question? No. I'm sorry.
My question was, let's just say that we, the first, the cities went ahead. I know it was between Jennifer and yourself that the cities set out what they were wanting to do and how they wanted to do it, and then you guys approved it. And then from there, they submit for once they all put the money or whatever, they submit for that money. Is that at 100% or is that at a lesser amount for what they submitted based on us approving them ahead of time?
Right now, the approvals that we've had, well, first of all, we're approving stuff that they're asking for types of expenditures between now and December. So they can't submit all of what they're asking for until such time as they've spent the money. Like payroll expenses, okay? Payroll expenses are going to be earned. They may project $8 million worth of the $16 million hazard pay amount. Well, all of that's going to be earned over a period of time. So as soon as the payroll's over, they'll submit it, and our goal is to reimburse them as much as possible. But at some point, we're going to hit the $75 million level, and we know that the ask from all of the cities is much greater than the $75 million that we've allocated for reimbursement. So
okay, but that puts us in a predicament here because we stated that I thought that we were pre-approving stuff that they were doing to make sure we wouldn't go past the amount, to make sure we replace the money that they had as expenditure.
We can approve anything that any dollar amount, but until such time as they give us expenditures to reimburse, we can't outlay the money to them. Now, what more than likely is, as we approach the limits of the $75 million and things that we approve, we'll bring up a discussion to the board about how best to handle that. Maybe we go ahead and take the $75 million and divide it by population, okay? And that be the max that any given city can request from us, up to the $75 million. That's one way of doing this. But that conversation I hope to have between the consultants and make a recommendation to the board in the future.
Okay, I suggest that we get some clarification out to the cities as soon as possible.
Exactly.
Because I do not want to be getting these calls and asking, it's the money submitted as the mayor and you all said, and we submitting that we're going to start getting our money, especially when they're outlaying that money thinking it's going to come back to them. So my suggestion is that we do a reach out and make sure everybody's on the same page and that who's submitting. I know one of my particular cities has already spent X amount of money that they put in through the pandemic and so on. And I think that's already been approved and they should be getting that money because that's been spent already a while ago.
As if we've approved under the program, if we've approved expenditures and now they're submitting reimbursement requests with invoices for those expenses, yes, we are honoring them.
Okay. And what you're saying is that as some of the cities are continuously giving grants or doing certain things, it could be dangerously close to the total amount that we have, and it might be more of the cities putting out than we have money to give. Is that what you're saying?
If their projections for all these type of expenditures are true, that are CARES Act eligible, and they want to expend those monies in the future, we will completely spend out the $75 million, and someone will be. We're doing the same thing on our end. We try to cover as much expenses as we can on the CARES Act, but there's a limit to that.
And we're good with that. But I want to make sure, I really want to make sure they understand that, and we keep that tally, so we don't have anybody going to hole for any amount, whether the cities or us.
I will.
Commissioner, if you look at page 12 of Ed's presentation, I want to make sure that everybody sees a couple of things that are on there. One, only 21 municipalities have executed their sub-grant agreement. They cannot be reimbursed if they do not execute their agreement.
Okay.
Also, they have estimated a total of $122 million for reimbursement. That does not mean that we or the consultants have told them that that is approved. Just because they've submitted something doesn't mean it's been approved. And so I don't know if that's some confusion that's occurring with the municipalities as well, that they believe because they've submitted something that it will be reimbursed. It has to be reviewed for eligibility and be approved.
But once that approval is given, then they should be counting on that money being sent from us to them. Am I correct?
Yeah, we would not approve more than $75 million.
No, was my startup question. So based on this, but Ed did say that there's some cities putting out more of a need or putting out more monies than probably that we have money to distribute. But we would have to approve them. And from what I understood beginning, Jennifer, back in the day when we started this, you were very clear and said they have to be approved by the amounts that they're going to do as expenditures. And so once they're approved, they will be getting that money because they're outlaying that money. Or they already outlaid that money and you're getting the receipts for that money.
If they're putting out money, they may well be putting out money that we have not approved yet as being reimbursable. They've estimated over $122 million worth of expense. But that does not mean that all $122 million is eligible for reimbursement. And a good portion of the $122 million is eligible for FEMA match. So we are not in a situation where there is more expenditure that we have approved than funding that is available.
Okay, thank you for straightening that out, because that is exactly where we don't want to be in any shape or form. So we're going to get anyways, circle back with these municipalities to make sure that they understand. And you say there's 21 out of the 34 municipalities that actually applied for any funding. Is that correct?
21 municipalities that have signed their interlocal agreement. Okay.
Okay.
And that's the first step for us to start the reimbursement process. Commissioner, your point is very well taken. I will have a meeting. I'll arrange one next week. Okay, early next week, so that we can meet with the managers and those mayors that want to attend, so that we can tell them and go through this the payment process a little bit more clearly.
Yeah, I don't want to start up the problem that we had in the beginning of all this again. And it's very clear, and I think Jennifer was very clear, and yourself, Ed, that they have to get it approved. They have to have the agreement, the interlocal agreement, and I'm sure the majority of all these the 21 have done it, and it's proper and so on. But please circle around as soon as possible. Okay. Thank you.
We'll stand up a meeting next week.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Bond?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Jordan has not gone up yet, so Commissioner Jordan will be after you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me just say that I am extremely concerned about the amount of funding that we have applied to the various, programs, and the amount of funding that has basically been approved at this particular point in time, particularly in light of the fact that, these monies have to be spent as we stand today by the end of December. And I know that, we all basically propose programs with all the good intentions and feeling that, that kind of a demand would be out there. But I don't see it. I don't see these funds being able to be spent between now, we got 2.5 months or so to basically try and make that happen. And I just don't see it happening. And so we've got to take a look at these funds and try to figure out, where the greatest demand is. In other words, where people are burning through and the demand is there, so that these expenditures can basically be made. And perhaps what we need to do is to reallocate, some of the funds, because again, we've done all this with all the good intentions in the world, not really knowing how much of a demand there would be out there, so that we make sure that we can spend as much of this money as possible. The other thing I would raise is you have the municipalities who put in their requests for the $25 million outside of the operating expenses. And what I saw in reviewing at least some of them was the fact that they were basically asking, to put forth the same programs that we already have, that we're now, basically, in my opinion, not really spending at the kind of rate, that would basically expend all of the money by the end of the year. So perhaps a part of the thinking could be to take a look at, what they would want to do within their municipalities and try to pair that up to some degree with what our program basically is doing now, so that we can basically, run through the money. Because again, they're going to now, if they get funding for the same things that we're providing, they're going to be out there trying to find people, to basically access the programs, just like we're out looking for people and providing the opportunity for people to access our programs. So again, I would just put that forward as a discussion that we need to have, and some decisions that need to be had, because again, I just don't see, I don't see the cities being able to spend that money between now and the end of the year. I don't see us being able to spend that money, not at the rates that we're talking about at this point. And let me ask you a question. There was a document that showed from the $75 million allocated to the cities, that so far we processed like $300,000, 200 and some change.
Yes, sir. That's the paperwork that finally cleared everything. There's more in the pipeline, and things will be moving out faster. As first of all, again, a lot of these expenses that they're projecting that they've gotten approval on have not been incurred as of yet. So it is going to be a little bit of a ramp up front, and then there'll be steady applications from them to us and out the door faster.
But again, the coverage period starts in March. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you've got March, April, May, June, July, August, September. They've got all those expenditures, and to only have like 200 and some odd $1,000 basically to be processed at this point, I'm really concerned about that.
Commissioner, Madam Chair, may I bring on one of our consultants on the line who is actually working with the detail on this?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, Tanya Shannon, if you're on board here, can you speak up?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead.
Sounds good. All right. So with regards to the applications that we've received, We are reviewing the documentation. A lot of them were not having sufficient documentation. For example, activity logs, where they are demonstrating that the activities that the individuals were doing was COVID related. We received a lot of payroll. For example, we received a number that I reviewed myself was for lifeguards, and it just simply said insert name, lifeguard, and activities. It was just said COVID-19. We don't know what the lifeguard was doing. We can make some assumptions, but we need that documentation to show that the lifeguard was doing a COVID-19 activity, and the lifeguard's entire salary was being claimed. So the team is working with them, and I think with this initial period of them understanding what is the documentation required, once that kind of understanding happens, the process will go a lot more quickly. But at this time, we're waiting on and working with them, not simply just waiting. The team's talking to them on a daily basis with the different municipalities, trying to get to where we need to be to meet the Office of Inspector General requirements. But we anticipate.
Let me ask this question.
Yes, sir.
Now, based upon everything that has been submitted now, and again, you're going through and you're trying to determine, that those things that are eligible. How much overall have the cities applied for at this point in time? Do we have a handle on that?
So there's a two-step process. The first step is for them, kind of like how Ms. Moon was articulating. They first kind of give us a concept of what they want to do or have already done, and we assess it for eligibility. Then we let them know, yes, this is eligible, or no, this isn't eligible. If you do it this way, it may be eligible, and kind of work with them. Once step one is done, and $212 million worth of activities have been sent in, does not mean that, but only 27 million has been kind of moved to the next step. Step two is where they actually provide us documentation, and we look at it and we review that. For that, we are, one second, pulling it up.
So we've had over $200 million of requests that needed to basically be vetted.
Sorry, sir, my computer froze when you spoke. Can you say that last sentence?
No, I'm saying you're telling us that you've got over $200 million in requests that have to be vetted. That have to be vetted. We're not saying they're approved, but they have to be vetted. Yes, sir.
$206 has been proposed. $27 million has been vetted and moved on to step two. At that point, we have, doing some quick math here, roughly around $2 million worth of requests for reimbursements have been submitted, where they say that all the documentation is there. And then we start looking at it, and a lot of the times we have to go back to them and say, all right, what was the lifeguard doing? Not just COVID-19, and go back and forth. Once the documentation tells the story, then we make the recommendation to the county for payment, and we work with Mr. Marquez's team to formally approve it and for the check to be issued.
Okay. Ed, in reference to, for example, the taxi jitney for hire limousine grants program, $10 million there. It doesn't show how much has been approved as far as funding is concerned. You have that number, say 11 applications are approved. You know what that boils down to?
I believe Jennifer has a better update than I do on this.
Yeah, yes, just a moment, let me check.
And then the $10 million veteran and active military housing assistance, how much has been approved? The $5 million veteran basic needs, how much has been approved in terms of dollar amounts, or does it mean that nothing has been approved at this point? The veteran small business, there's nothing there about how much money has been approved.
Right, that's part and parcel of Gary's overall overall activity. He hasn't broken it out yet by veteran groups. He's just now in that process of identifying which ones are veterans out of all of the applications that he has. So we will have more information on that as we go forward. Everything is still ramping up, Commissioner. It just a lot of these have just started receiving applications in September 11th. The taxi jitneys started receiving applications on the 25th of September.
All right. Well, again, that is the reason why I'm raising the concern, because we're in October now, basically. You got October, November, and December, and I just don't see how these funds are going to be spent between now and then. And we may need again to take a look at those programs that have a good burn rate, and basically try to improve the amount of funds there, and also to take a look at the request that the cities have made for the $25 million pot, because again, when I took a look at that, a lot of that those programs are the same programs that we're currently operating, and we have a underperforming burn rate in the programs that we're operating, and we're going to put their programs on top of that. Again, I don't know that makes things better. It'd be better to try to work together. They can get people through the door in their cities that need these services. Then maybe we ought to be working with them and then working with us to go on ahead and get their people processed, as opposed to putting another program out there that they're going to have to now try and ramp up and do the same things that we're doing, and perhaps go through the same things that we're going through. So with that, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I just have a real concern that we're not going to spend this money, and we need to, if we're not going to be able to do it, we need to be able to try to do something else to go on ahead and get this money out into the community.
I agree, and I ditto that, Commissioner Moss. Commissioner Jordan, you're up and recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my questions is probably along the same line. I know that a number of municipalities applied for a duplicate type of programming that the county may be doing because like the city of Opelika, I know they applied for $2.1 million to do a housing assistance, rental assistance program. And I've encouraged them to make sure that to the extent possible to send the people to the county program. But I do feel that even if it means making sure that people are much more comfortable dealing with the municipality and know the people in the municipality, and we can get them to respond. I know that we have more applications for resources than we have funding availability. But what is the formula for handling this request and among others? Because as been stated, even if it is duplicative, getting the money spent is what is absolutely critical. And attached to that question also is information that was provided to municipalities. I'm sure we provided them with an outline of the type of documentation that they would need to provide, because it seems like just the example that was given just now to put down for the lifeguard COVID related, that doesn't even make sense. So I would hope that there was some sort of an explanation given on the type of documentation that would be acceptable. I'm sure it probably was, but I'd just like to have you expand on that as well.
Right, Commissioner, I'll turn it right on over to Tanya, but definitely the consultant has been touching the cities repeatedly about both programs, both on the $75 million one and on the $25 million one. They've had seminars, they've had one-on-ones. Tanya, you've got more detail.
So we have put on multiple trainings almost on a weekly basis. And one, how to utilize the system to submit their documentation, and then what documentation is required. The documentation required is on par with what they're normally used to with FEMA public assistance. It is a little not as harsh as sometimes FEMA public assistance is, but it's along that kind of theme. So we did provide them a handout, an email reminder, and kind of had those trainings to discuss what the documentation requirements are. And then when we receive the request for reimbursement, such as the example I provided, the team reaches out to them and speaks with them one-on-one to kind of coach them through what is needed to progress through the next step. And actually, we've had success where FEMA has, because part of the program is they can submit their cost share for their FEMA projects. They're on the hook, as is the county, is for 12.5% of the cost that they submit to FEMA. We've worked with a number of the municipalities to reverse FEMA decisions where FEMA has said this isn't eligible, and they send the invoices to us, and then the team works with them on what to say to FEMA to get FEMA to change their mind. So we've had a couple successes where the county's not on the hook anymore, is not having to pay out that CRF money and having FEMA pay for it.
Okay, what is the status, Ed, of the request from Opelika, even though it's a duplicative type program? Is it being considered or what?
The direction that we had from the resolution was to bring back the items for board's appropriation. The administration has not made a recommendation on any of these programs, because our understanding was that the board wanted to do the allocation. The Opelika is $2.1 million. You're right, it's mainly in the residential and rental program area. If the commission does not want to do duplicate programs, we will be absolutely, we will go out of our way to make sure that we communicate as much as possible with the cities to get them active in routing applications to our programs. Because at the end of the day, we're going to be showing where all of our programs are being spent by municipalities. So we would love to get leads or have people directed to our offices so that we can start them on the process of application. But it's just, again, looking at this is really the next presentation, but it's the package that I sent out this past Monday. There are a total of 50 proposals by the 20 cities here that made proposals. And those proposals ended up being on $54 million and change, ended up being eligible for allocation. They're basically broken up into broad categories.
Ed, that's your next report, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's
okay. So let me let the commission finish on this one. Commissioner Carver and Moss, and hopefully that's it, and we can move on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to hold off again on the cities until that presentation, but I did want to mention about the difficulties with some of the application processes. And Commissioner Monestein and Commissioner Moss went into it in some detail. I wonder what assistance we offer. It's come to my attention not only for the taxi drivers, but some of the art applications, that there's concerns about the process, that maybe the requirements are very stringent. For example, for individual artists, the application process is very stringent. And the dollar amount is relatively small. So, I just like us to review those things and make sure that we are getting the money out the door, as Commissioner Moss also emphasized, particularly for the taxi drivers. I know one of the requirements mentioned was the tax return. They have said to me, several of the taxi drivers, that a lot of the data is already on file with the county regulatory offices, and that some of these requests are redundant. And, these are people who need the relief. So I understand we have to be audit proof, but we also want to make sure that we're not creating unnecessary barriers. And I also am wondering if there's other help available. For example, our library staff and our Community Action Human Services staff have been very helpful with other applications. Might they be available to assist with some of these applications? Again, just so we can move this along and make sure people get the help that they need. I don't know who would answer those questions.
Well, as far as the regulatory filings, I'm not aware of any tax returns that we generally have on at the county. However, we can ask the regulatory agencies that we have and see if they have any documentation.
Or excuse me, Ed, if I could just interrupt. Or, you know, I understand why a tax return would be useful, but are there any other financial documents that might suffice? For example, maybe there was a delay in filing a tax return. Would that disqualify someone? So again, you know, just to create some more flexibility and not require extra paperwork.
I will re-review our requirements. Okay, it's a caught between a rock and a hard place, because we're going to be held up to basically the same type of audit reviews that we go through with FEMA. Okay, and that is FEMA kicks back.
Right. I'm not arguing about that. Obviously, we have to be audit proof, but just to be sure that we're taking into account other ways that create more flexibility that might also satisfy.
We'll ask the consultant to review all of the processes that we have to the extent that they haven't already done so.
Okay.
And I'll make sure that we're being as lenient as possible, but still prudent enough to pass an audit.
And to the issue of whether we could get some additional assistance from some of those departments that have stepped up with other kinds of application support.
I will talk to the department head. The library is the one that best comes to mind.
And they've partnered with COSD to do that, right? They've worked in tandem, as I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. They're serving as a location for receipt of applications, but we haven't talked to them specifically about assistance with the applications.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Commissioner Higgins, and I hope we can move this meeting along. We've spent a lot of time on this one before. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very quick because my colleagues have brought up good concerns about the pacing of making sure this money gets out. Just wanted to also raise the concern particularly about the restaurant program. Remember, we implemented that very early. That appears to be going very slowly on processing. I just want to make sure, Ed, Jennifer, Mr. Mayor, please take a look at the resources that are available to process those applications. A few restaurants in my district, a month ago, they asked where their application was and they said it was in process, and they asked a month later and they're still in process. So when you get a chance, please make sure they're resourced properly, and happy if need be to even redeploy somebody from my team to help them if any of these businesses are struggling with paperwork. Also, just want to point out that the United Way program has been going very, very efficiently. They took their first round of applications, closed the window, processed them, and so that might be, they're going to be reopening again, I believe tomorrow, to get the remainder of the money out. But that certainly could be a place that definitely has the capacity to move money to families who have lost hours or lost jobs, and they seem to be doing it very efficiently. And there's not a lot of you have to just prove your family is struggling from COVID. You don't have to provide all kinds of tax returns and other things. And I think that has made that go a lot more efficiently. So just a couple suggestions for us to think about as we, when we look at this data again, probably in another 2 weeks, to see how we want to reallocate money. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm sorry, I have to step away from the meeting for maybe 30 minutes at around 3 o'clock, and then I'll be back. Sorry about that.
Madam Chair.
Vice Chair.
Very fast, one question, and I don't want the answer now. I don't want to delay this meeting. Mr. Marquez, if you can get back to me, I want to know why the city of Miami Springs have 0 and the city of West Miami have 0 when they requested help for the utilities and other cities receive utility assistance program. I know that they say, okay, for operational expenses, but I want the answer why some cities yes and some cities no. But not now, I don't want to delay this. If you can get back to me, I'll really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead, Ed.
All right, if we can bring up the other slides, the other presentation. go to slide 1. Actually, okay. This is a 68-page document, okay, with the details of the individual plans that the cities have requested under the $25 million program. The total submission was $58 million, $58.7 million. We've deemed as ineligible $4.3 million for various reasons. Some of the utility programs that we had were reimbursing just for municipal utility payments, and that's lost revenue, which isn't allowed by the feds. Others were just did not provide enough detail as far as what type of documentation that they could provide. So it ended up we rejected $4.3 million. So we have a total of 54.4, and you can see that these are which cities have requested funds. Now all of these amounts, this $54.4 million, is can be broken down into broad categories. If you were to review go through all of these proposals, you'll find out that $27.3 million of this is residential and mortgage assistance, very much like our programs elsewhere. We had $1.8 million of programs that dealt with child care and academic support. Small business programs, grants, and some technical support totaled $21 million. Utility assistance to people for FP&L and for internet amounted to $2 million. Again, you can't reimburse your own utilities because that's frowned by the feds. Basic needs like food programs and the like, we had $1 million worth of that. And then there was a couple of programs that mitigated COVID by testing, tracing, and that amounted to another $1 million. So broadly speaking, over half of this amount here is rent and utility service, rent and mortgage assistance. The proposals that were submitted and that were approved are detailed enough for the commission to get a flavor of what each city is asking for, and so it's all doable. Now, if you were to the issue is whether or not they can spend the money fast enough, like Commissioner Moss has indicated, because that is an issue with us too, obviously. But it's just the $25 million. I mean, the $54 million represents. Let me say this again. The $25 million represents 46% of. I mean, we could fund the $54 million worth of programs only up to an extent of 46%, assuming that you want to fund each one of these things in a smaller dollar. And that was in the memo in the email that I sent to everyone when I sent this thing out. So that's basically our presentation on this thing. It's a lot of information, a lot of good programs, but a lot of it is duplicative.
Okay, I don't see any hands up, but then I can't see where the hands would be. Commissioner Jordan and then Kava.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a continuation of what I was stating before, and I understand that it seems like a number of municipalities are applying for the rental and mortgage assistance type of activity, which is duplication. However, what I'm concerned about is that, to me, if we go ahead on and approve the funding for these programs, it would help to go ahead on and spend the money, because the ability for the clientele to get down to get to the various locations that are being handled by the county may not be feasible. And if our objective is to spend the money, it should not matter where it's spent, as long as, we take up the opportunity to get it spent. And our residents are much more familiar with their city halls and places that they would have to go. And even if they don't have a vehicle, they'd be able to access getting there much more freely. So I would just encourage us to not let the factor that it's a program that we're doing in the county not stop us from providing the resources, even if it's not of course, it won't be at full value, but even if it's on a percentage basis, that would help us to make sure that the money gets spent faster. And of course, we need money for unincorporated Dade residents and can encourage them. But I would still encourage those municipalities, even if they got some resources, to try and make sure that they service as many citizens as possible. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Pava?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we're trying to decide how to split this baby. And I did float an idea by Ed Marquez as one way of doing it. And I don't want to get it technically wrong. So I'm just going to start, and maybe, Ed, you could finish. But perhaps we want to consider percentage by population. And then for those that fall below the percentage that they would get by population in their request, that money goes back into the pot. And in this manner, we're working for some equity, and then the smaller cities that came in at low dollar below their percentage would be fully funded, and some of the larger allocations would be on a reduced percentage rather than doing a reduced percentage across the board. So that's just one idea. Ed, could you clarify if that was in fact the idea that I suggested?
Yeah, your staff called me up just before the meeting, and we talked a little bit about an alternative, and they raised the issue about doing it by population. I've had the chance to run some numbers on this, and there would be, if you did it by population, and you were to...
And excuse me, just to clarify, it would be by population, but then based on what they'd applied for, not just an automatic, right? So we would look at what they applied for against the formula by population.
The first step is for those who have applied, taking their population and saying, okay, how do you spread the $25 million just based on their population? You know, you have like Aventura, who had an application of $10,000, they would get $645,000 by population. They applied for 10,000.
But excuse me, Ed, the intent of the proposal was not to give them 645, but to give them the full 10.
Okay, I haven't gone into that step, but yes, we can do that. We can.
Right. So that just show, it's a good example because it just shows that some of the smaller cities made very modest asks, and why would we want to give Aventura 64% of their $10,000? That would not make a lot of sense. It would make more sense, in my opinion, to give them the full 10,000, and then the balance goes back into the pot. Obviously, the largest cities. What are the largest city requests?
The largest city request is Miami. Okay, by population, they would get $8.2 million.
And their request was for
26.
Okay, and the next largest?
Next largest would be, the request was Miami Gardens at 5.1 million in application. By population, they would be capped at 1.9 million.
Okay. I guess, to run the numbers now, the idea would be like your Aventura, you would by population get 640, you've requested 10. The balance between those two goes back into the pot so that a larger city would end up with a higher percentage of what they had requested. That would be the way it would go. So that's just one proposal, Madam Chair, that I wanted to put on the table. I know there's a lot of different ways of approaching this, but I thought that was something worth consideration. Was there anything else about it, Ed, to what we discussed previously?
No, we would have to do the iterations in order to spread the excess around, but it's doable.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Hayman? Thank you, Madam Chair. Ed and staff, thank you for your wonderful specifics on this. Wait, I'm still on? Yeah. Okay. I'm looking at the chair. Chair, am I okay? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Here's the thing. Understanding this, it's like CBOs and everything else. There's always a greater ask than what we have. And so representing 13 cities, I really ask them to be very mindful, not just to what is eligible, but also the competition out there beyond the ratios associated with populations. And I got on mine, Ed, for the publication that came out, if you could adjust it, we got North Miami to come down from 3.964 and change million to 1.45 million, and pare it down. Anyways, I'm hoping that when you look at some of these things, not just by population, but some other things. Commissioner Levine Cava made the example of Aventura. For everything that was expended, what was eligible, and also what they were able to cover, they're only asking for $10,000 at the end of the game. And I have a bunch of cities that said, all things considered, we're not going to ask. Val Harbor, Biscayne Park, Golden Beach, Bay Harbor, Miami Shores that I share with the chair, Miami Beach for all their population, and I share that with my colleague Higgins. They only put an ask in for $470,605. So I'm hoping that sum total is looked at between all my colleagues on it. North Miami, I share with Commissioner Monestein, and I got with the manager and asked her, I understand the worthiness, and out of 9 requests, 8 of them were deemed approved as far as program status. Only 1 was denied, but we still asked them to pare down over $2 million in their request. So I'm hoping from that, for the 13 cities that I represent and share several of them with other colleagues, that you could look at what the requests are, not just a population base or that they are eligible, but to the nature of these requests and who they're making it for. Because we have heard hours today, hours every other time we get together, the difficulty that comes with criteria being met, comprehension, bureaucracy, and everything else to get money out that could be eligible, definitely in need, but it's not getting to the end users because of everything that has to be done. So I'm asking on this, if it is approved, and I'm looking at this list, that you be mindful of it. I think the total for the 13 that I represent and share with others is 4.3 million of the 25 million. And I have 2 of the very large cities by population, Miami Beach and North Miami, that I share with other colleagues. I know they're big because they sit on our TPO. So if it is with population, that's up there with the others. So I'm asking you to be mindful of it, because we asked them to pare it down at the beginning. And then for some that I said, a little too much even still, they came down again. So if that's something that you could look at too, Ed, and be mindful of when you start allocating. I don't know if it's going to end up being you with another condition, or ultimately us. But I'm making that appeal. I think they were very responsible in the request that you all set forth and followed up by me, and I'm sure some of my colleagues that share the jurisdictions.
Thank you, Commissioner Hayman. And with that, Madam Attorney, this is an oral update, so we don't need to vote on this, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and having to consideration, Mr. Marquez, to get back to each commissioner on the questions pertaining to the districts and ideas, and we didn't establish percentage at the beginning. I don't think it's ideal to change the rules of the game after the funding was approved. So let's go to the next item. Do you need to read it, Madam Attorney?
No, Madam Vice Chair.
Okay.
I'm sorry, point of information.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My understanding is from the presentation that Mr. Marquez made is that the administration is not making allocations. They're looking to the board to make the allocations because the requests exceed the amount of money. So if we don't take action, then they're not going to be able to make any allocations. That's my understanding. So please, if we could just clarify that point.
Mr. Marquez, will you please, because at this point, there were many questions regarding cities that got zero, and then other cities got a lot. So is there any way that we can look at this again to make sure? Because this was an update. This was not an action item as per the attorneys. Am I right or wrong, Madam Attorney?
Yes, Madam Chair, you're correct. This is an update.
Yeah, it was an update. So it's not something, in order for us to vote, he has to come with an item that we can see everything and that we can find all the answers. So this is an update. It was not an item for approval. Okay?
Madam Chair, I think what we can do is we take in all the input that we received today, and then we'll come back with an item that you can vote on to go ahead and
That was fair for all the commissioners who had questions in their district. Madam Chair, you want me to turn the meeting back to you?
Yes, I'll take it back over. Thanks, Commissioner. Well, the next item is your item.
I move the item. Everybody already saw the item. It's the retroactive financial relief for the airport. So I move the item.
Second.
If you have any questions, Madam Chair, we have Mr. Sola. Are you there, Mr. Sola, to answer any questions? I think we have Mr. Sola.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam Vice Chair. Madam Chair?
The chair is not available right now.
Oh, okay. All right, Madam Vice Chair. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor on your item.
Welcome. Always, Commissioner Moss. Thank you. These are the people who really need our help. Okay.
Yeah. Likewise, Madam Chair. I'd like to be a co-sponsor on 3, 4, and your item.
Thank you, Commissioner Jordan. Really appreciate it. I have Mr. Sola ready to answer any question, Commissioner Cava, and then Commissioner Jordan.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Let me just say, I have an urging coming that has to do with the continuation of the assistance to the airlines for the loss of jobs that are happening effective today or tomorrow. Unfortunately, that urging won't come till a future agenda, but the job loss will take place, particularly for American Airlines, effective, I guess, tomorrow. If you could maybe give us an update on that, Mr. Sola, any news as to any possible relief?
Yeah, but your item is coming to committee.
But it will be too late. It will be too late, Madam Chair, that's all.
The airlines are working very hard on that. Remember, this is mostly the financial relief report like we did before, but I don't want to mix both. This is my item, and I want this item to be discussed. So any questions on this item are welcome right now. I hope that Mr. Sola
Madam
is
Chair,
here.
Madam Vice Chair.
Yeah, I'm trying to get Mr. Sola to answer your questions.
Madam Chair, I've joined the meeting.
Oh, he's here. Go ahead, Commissioner Modesty.
No, I'll go ahead and yield to Mr. Sola.
We couldn't understand you. We're having problems. Can you repeat?
I say I'll go ahead and yield to Mr. Sola. I'll let him speak.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Mr. Sola, anything you need to add on this item?
Madam Chair, I would just like to add this is the July report. There was one more report that will come in August, which is part of the initial relief plan that we offered. This plan was also extended by the board to continue all the way through the end of the year. And I know there's been some conversations as to additional relief into the future, but we're looking and monitoring the situation before we come back, especially considering, depending on what Congress ultimately does for the airports as you've directed.
Thank you, and I appreciate it. And then we will look at this moving forward. And then Commissioner Cava had a question about the airlines before. The airlines got in contact with me, but apparently she requested that item and put a hold on the item. So Mr. Sola, be ready to answer those questions for her when the item comes properly to committee next week. Okay? Thank you, and we support the airlines too. Okay, so Madam Attorney, do we need, Commissioner Modesty, do you need any additional question?
No, Madam Chair, I just want to be added as a co-sponsor to your item. And as per the previous discussion, if the chair would allow, when the mayor comes back with his proposal, I had 2 items that County Attorney's Office did send to the chair's office that were not added to the agenda. I'd like to see them added to the next agenda when the mayor comes back with a proposal on the CARES Act money. Thank you.
Thank you, and I know we have a request for the federal government to extend the funding more than December, so I already put a hold on the item to extend this if it's needed in looking forward to the future. So thank you. Do we need a motion on this item, Madam Attorney?
Yes, Madam Chair, it's a motion to accept the report.
Okay, can someone?
Move it.
Second.
It was moved by Commissioner Moss, seconded by Commissioner Hayman. Additional
No,
questions?
Diaz. It sounded like Moss.
Oh, Diaz, I'm sorry. Wait, I see too many faces at the same time, and I'm trying my best. Thank you, I apologize. Properly move and second. Thank you to both of you. Okay, anyone wishes to be recorded? No, without objection, that item is approved. Let's go to item number 4 now. Commissioner Levin-Cava.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had the opportunity to hear today from 2 speakers, Evelio Torres of the Early Learning Coalition and Max Rothman of the Alliance for Aging. We've spoken at previous meetings about the hardship for our childcare businesses and for our adult daycare businesses. And thank you, Commissioner Soto, for signing on as co-sponsor to this item. We do have a proposed amendment at this time, just to clarify how this could go forward. If I could get the county attorney to read the amendment, and then I'd like to move the item.
Madam Attorney, would you please?
Yes, section 1 is amended to add the following after the second sentence. In developing the program, the county mayor or county mayor's designee shall explore a partnership with the Early Learning Coalition and the Alliance for Aging. Section 3 is amended to add the following phrase in the 3rd line, including a recommendation on the distribution of funding between child and adult daycare centers.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if I could just explain.
Second as amended.
You move as amended, right? As amended.
Moved as amendment, and I just wanted to add a quick comment. Thank you. I just wanted to say that we know that this has been a real hardship on both industries. The childcare system has been open, but partially. Many have closed. Many have had to reduce their population. The adult daycares are open now by virtue of the governor's order, but have lost obviously tremendous time and support. And these 2 organizations are available. This was a conversation I had with Deputy Mayor Moon about how this might go forward. So this is not defining how it must go forward, but just providing this as an opportunity. And then as to the relative division of dollars between the children and the adult system, obviously we want to look across the board at the number of each center and the hardship and ask the administration to give a recommendation how to allocate the funds. So again, with that, I move the item as amended. Thank you.
Second as amended, and Jerry, if you could add Heyman as a co-sponsor, thank you.
Also Jordan.
Jordan and Heyman. And I have a question, but I have Commissioner Moss first on the.
Madam Chair, just to be added as a co.
Perfect.
Request to be added as a co.
Okay, I have a question for the sponsor. We are not including here Head Start. And are we doing this for non-profits only or for profits too?
I was not planning to limit it to nonprofits, Madam Chair. And certainly I would say, I mean, Head Start, to the extent that it's operated by private operators in the community, I think would be eligible as well.
I think that is something that is very important. Head Start has always been our proudness.
Yes.
And Commissioner Jordan can speak about that more than I do. But as a teacher, I see what Head Start do in the community. My other question is, that always people try to take advantage of something like this. Is there any way that if we're talking to a profit organization, we see the financials, the salaries and everything to make sure that we are not giving, we had problems with the state funding for the senior centers in the past. The salaries were out of proportion and they cut meals for seniors in centers because of that. So we had a big problem with that, and I don't want this to fall into the same. So it's just suggestions that whoever is going to be adjudicating this funding, look at that to make sure that it's really the ones who need it, so we can protect our children and our seniors. If you accept that, that will be perfect.
Yes, Madam Vice Chair, I think that's very much in keeping with the spirit. Thank you very much.
And the Head Start.
Yes, and Head Start, of course.
Okay, so it was as amended and seconded as amended. So I don't see any hands. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Heyman?
Yes, as amended.
Commissioner Higgins? Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez?
Aye.
Commissioner Monestein?
Yes.
Commissioner Moss?
Yes.
Commissioner Soto?
Yes.
Commissioner Suarez is absent. Commissioner Bobo?
Yes.
Commissioner Naveen Kava?
Yes.
Commissioner Diaz?
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Sosa?
Yes.
Chairwoman Edmondson? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next item, please. Madam Attorney, do you need to read it?
No, Madam Chair, it's just special item number 5.
Special item number 5, Commissioner Diaz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as you know, we've been through so much in our great nation, especially Miami-Dade County. I thought it was fitting and proper if we could do a monument, basically thanking the nurses and doctors of our community that have worked tirelessly, slept even at their job to continue to work and work hard, putting their own families at risk and themselves, and many of them got sick and got their families sick. So to me, I don't think it's I think it's the greatest tribute we could at least do by at least doing a statute of them moving forward. This is something that's we're putting it out to the mayor, to administration, so they could come back and see how it could be done. But I think it's something that is very important in our community to say thank you at all times, especially to those that put their lives on the line for all of us.
And I commend you for this. I will love to co-sponsor with you.
Absolutely.
And I'm pretty sure we can help find private donations so the taxpayers doesn't have to pay for this. If
Amen.
we all work together, that will be beautiful. And I love the idea. I have Commissioner Soto.
Yes, my dear colleagues, I would like to suggest that we have a person in our administration, Michael Springs, who is an individual who is a real expert on all these items. And I'd like to suggest the name of Michael Spring to help us in this a very important matter. I agree with Commissioner Diaz, and I guess with all of us, that we have to recognize these folks and do something good for them. So I'd like to suggest Michael Spring, who's the director of our cultural things and so on. And we have worked together on different issues of statues and monuments, and he really knows his stuff. So, Michael, I think that I'd like to propose you. I don't know if you like the idea, Michael, or what. Right? We haven't talked about that. I think you're the man.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm pretty sure they're going to work with Commissioner Diaz and this item and the location and everything, and then Commissioner Diaz will bring the report back to the commission, right?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I have
Absolutely.
Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'd like to request being as a co. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So we have a motion. Jordan has a co-sponsor too. Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Madam Clerk, this is a resolution. Do we have to go? Okay, anyone wishes to be recorded? No. Now's your moment to say no. Seeing none, this item is approved. Let's go to special item number 6. Go ahead. Special item number 6, Commissioner Soto. You want to present your item?
Move the item.
Second the item.
Okay, the item was moved in second. I have Commissioner Hayman. I have a lot of questions in the item, but I have Commissioner Hayman. Go ahead, Commissioner. I recognized you before.
Madam Chair, thank you. And especially the issue of mental health. I'm truly concerned, as all of our colleagues have been. But I did ask Jackson about this. I couldn't speak to Senator Soto or his staff about it. But the Public Health Trust already has a mobile unit. And I asked Steve Leifman about it and its operation. And yes, I know that collectively Jennifer worked with us and the budget to make sure that Judge Leifman's facility for treatment and recovery on Northwest 7th Avenue, a stationary building, was brought up to the sufficient funds it needed from additional GOB money. This is a mobile unit that goes around now, similar to our needle exchange one from the University of Miami. It is operational and it is funded. And my concern is when we have such critical other areas that have yet to be funded, this is from the same pot of money from the Virus CARES Act, $3 million that may go into something else that isn't covered. If it wasn't covered, I'd be the first one to say yes, because suicides are up, domestic violence is up, and quite a few of our services that are permanent in structure have downsized because they don't want people coming into other medical facilities. But Senator, I was hoping someone from Jackson would have contacted you or your staff to let you know that not only do we have the mobile unit, but you know what, it seems like at times the best kept secret, maybe what needs to be done is a 311 where they are aware that this service does exist. And what you'd be happy to know is it's not done through the Public Health Trust. It's done in cooperation with them, but it's the South Florida Behavioral Network. That's the same group that Steve Leifman for the courts, our VA with our people with PTSD, and others are using. So it's not a new agency, and they are funded. They are professionally facilitating a mobile unit for people who can't make it to their facilities. So I have to tell you, I can't vote for it, but I wanted to explain it because it's like, what the hell? I've championed with all of you so many times mental health issues, and now I'm going against this. It already exists. And South Florida Behavioral Network said they're available to take the call, but they might need help from us on 311 to further the public's awareness of them. So I can't vote for it because I think $3 million from the CARES Act may be better in places where there is no duplicity. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner Soto, before we continue, is there any way that you can defer this item and we can have maybe a sunshine? Because right now, putting a big thing on top of Jackson, when CARES Act only provide for the necessary expenditures that are incurred due to the public health regarding to that. And at the same time, usually people prefer to go to clinics in an office to maintain a level of discretion. There are many things that maybe the judge can work with you. The idea is good to help mental health, but can you defer the item and maybe we can have a meeting? Or because to put something like this on top of Jackson right now, that have the COVID at this time, that have to recover for an incredible hole in financial, that is beginning to have people coming. We don't know if another peak is arriving. So the momentum is very, I cannot support it at this point, so it's up to you, Commissioner Soto.
Well, let me tell you, I have no problem with deferring the item, but it really surprises me that when I want to be able or try to be able to help the incredible things that I'm seeing out there. We just had a couple of blocks from my office, Walmart, Saturday morning, 87,000 Coral Way, center of all this part of Westchester and West State, so to speak. And a guy pulls the gun and kills another guy, 10 o'clock in the morning in front of everybody. Nobody knows why. Inside of a store, the guy shoots the other guy, the older guy shoots the younger guy, and stays there, and the police comes, and we are seeing more and more of this thing. We're seeing more and more of marital problems in the family, all kinds of issues, police issues, all over the place. I don't want to have in my community the problems that I see in other communities. I want peace and love, and unless we take care of all these mental issues, so I'm not against anyone, or I'm not trying to pull anything. Remember, I was at Jackson for about 15 years in that board of Jackson, and if somebody knows Jackson here, and I'm a patient at Jackson, I guess it's me. So and also because of my other life before I came into politics and all this. So what I'm saying is that we are really flooded with a bunch of problems in this community of ours. And I know, and I'm not going to cite names, or because I love them all and I know that they all try. But we have in our community, we have many problems that sometimes we don't talk about them, and or they exist, but they're just floating. It's like a current going on underneath. All I want to do is to be able to provide, to see if Jackson and the Jackson system that I so love somehow extend services all over the place. For a person or a family with a problem that has to do with to a certain place, getting a car, getting a bus, or some of these people don't have cars. Not everyone here has a car. I had a friend who was a war veteran, and he's now nobody knows where he's at. War hero from Vietnam, and PTSD was killing him. He didn't have a car. Had to get him passes for the trains and the buses, and this guy was a war hero with 2 Purple Hearts, and we need to make things easy for these folks, for these individuals, men and women, and all kinds of persons in our community, black, white, brown, all kinds of people, rich, poor, Jewish, Cubans, Colombians, all kinds of people that we have in our community, and they have, unfortunately, problems, family problems, all kinds of things. So my only thing is that, we don't want that. We don't want that because we have enough as it is. You know, it surprises me that when I hear that here's a commissioner who wants to help, and they're saying, no, we have enough of that. We really don't. Or what is the problem here? I just don't get it. So to you and to everybody else, to all of you, I really don't get it. I don't get it, and I think we need to talk some more about this thing, because I don't believe that we are so good and we are such a good shape that we don't need roving clinics, and make it easy for the people to know that they don't have to go to the area of Jackson Memorial or some places that we have somehow locations, and if these are roving clinics, much better. If we have trucks where we can have a nurse or two, or with a psychologist, of course, or somebody like that. You know, God knows how many incidents, such as the ones we see in some other places. And we have seen them here too in the past. So, you know, this is not a secret that we had many, many, many unfortunate things in the past, way back. I remember, because I was here, and nobody can tell me that this is not going to happen here again at some point. It may very well happen. So before anything like that happens, I want to be sure that the mental situation and this stress that sometimes we have in the community, and all these things, with all kinds of things, drug abuse, we had right here in the heart of my district a couple of incidents involving criminal offenses, because this guy killed the other guy in a Walmart, inside a Walmart at 10 o'clock in the morning in front of everybody. 58-year-old guy shooting at a 30-some-year-old guy. Are you going to tell me that there's not a mental issue here? The next night, Sunday night, at 11:30 at night, here there was a young guy going full speed in ATV on Bird Road on 94th Avenue. I mean, you know, Bird Road is the busiest road east to west in Miami-Dade County, crossing Miami-Dade County from east to west, all the way from the ocean to the Everglades, to the boonies. 11:30 at night, guy in ATV, here comes a car, hits the guy, kills a young guy, 21-year-old guy, and the driver escapes. Hit and run driving, another criminal incident, another dead person, another young dead person. Are we having problems here? So we having a lot of problems, and these are things that are in the news. God knows, you know, how many others like that we have every day. Don't we have mental problems here? Don't we have drug addiction here? Don't we have drug addiction comes in many ways. Excessive drinking, that's drug addiction too. So, you know, are you telling me that people don't drink here? Alcohol in large quantities in some places? Is that good or bad? So, you know, we having so many issues of this kind. And again, you know, I applaud all the people working on that, because that's needed. But when I see that we're offering something and people don't want to take it, or people come with some strange alibis, I just don't get it. You know, I'm not a little boy. I've been around, and I've been in many committees and in many places that many of you haven't been to. I can tell you that I just don't understand. So maybe somebody needs to come and explain that to me, because I just don't get it. And things are happening right here. I'm in the heart of probably the largest area of Miami-Dade County, my district is 100% unincorporated. We have on-sites over 1.5 million people, between 1.5 and 2 million people in Miami-Dade County today. So are you telling me that we don't have problems in unincorporated Miami-Dade County? We don't have criminal issues here and all sorts of mental issues here every day? That some of them don't arrive to a criminal situation, but God knows that we have lots and lots of problems that require the intervention of nurses. We were just talking about the nurses and doctors and building or erecting a statue to them, and that's super. And I have doctors and nurses in my family. I know all that. So I'm saying it surprises me to hear that here we want to improve the system, and a couple of people say, or some people say, no, we're okay. We don't need one. No, isn't that mind-boggling? Here, what we want to do is to improve what we have, improve on what we have. I want somebody to tell me what is the idea of saying, no, we don't need this, or we don't come with that, or somebody is reading too much into this, that I have some a strange idea about this. No, we just need to improve the system, improve, and make it accessible to the masses, to the people. This is a big county. It's a very large county in square miles, and everyone is entitled to have the access to doctors, nurses, psychologists, psychiatrists, and all of that. So please don't try to insult my intelligence, because I'm not that stupid. So
No.
right?
Commissioner, let's do something. If you allow me, can we bring Mr. Carlos Migoya? I know he's there, and he is more intelligent than I am, to make sure that he can clarify, because helping mental health is a priority for everyone. The only problem is the way we do it. Mr. Migoya, are you there?
Yes, I am, Madam Vice Chair.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. And let me first start off by applauding the senator for his foresight on this issue. This is something that is being addressed as we speak, but not on a temporary basis, which obviously is what he's talking about here, but on a permanent basis. Through the leadership of South Florida Behavioral Health Network, which is now called Thriving Mind. There is a mobile crisis unit, to correct Commissioner Heyman. It's under Thriving Mind, not at Jackson, that works in this environment. Today, specifically, as a matter of fact, the crisis intervention team is working together, and they have subcommittees addressing how to permanently fix these kinds of issues and creating a countywide strategy for mental health to include those crisis mobile units and organization of mental health resources throughout the entire county. It's not just a Jackson issue, it's a countywide issue with all the agencies, which is extremely important. Of course, our behavioral health, Jackson's behavioral health, is working as part of this group with Judge Leibman and the CIT, the Crisis Intervention Team, to partner on all these subcommittees. And part of the idea here is that we will bring that entire action plan back to you guys the moment we have everything completed. If you want to come up with a suggestion immediately, one can be done of maybe coordinating into the 311 unit, if we could do that through the administration, and having the 311 route the calls to the South Florida Behavioral Health Network, who can then have the mobile crisis units going out there on a temporary basis until you see what the final strategy is here. The mobile crisis unit is important, but it's only a piece of the entire network of what needs to be done. And that's why we want to, through Judge Leibman's leadership, we're going to have everything together so we can bring back to you and see the value here, because I think the senator is absolutely right. This is something extremely needed, and we need to get this done sooner rather than later.
And is there any way that you can work with the senator so he can bring the item with all those inclusiveness?
Absolutely. What we can do is the senator can come to we'll get him together with Judge Leibman to make sure they provide any input that he wants on that environment. And by the same token, the committees can provide the senator exactly what they're working on so we can put everything together. Absolutely.
I finished, Madam Chair. I go back to you.
Okay, thank you. And that's what I was going to suggest. What I kept trying to hop in was to call Mr. Begoya on up so that we could see what he had to say about it. So I think that was a good response, and maybe we have finally gotten that settled. Now I'm looking at the queue. We still have people in the pipe on the queue. Commissioner Cava, Commissioner Diaz, and Commissioner Soto already spoke. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to emphasize as well how critical the need is right now. I understand that the mental health professionals are over capacity. Obviously, we know that unfortunately suicide, depression, anxiety are way up. We do need additional resources. I'm very happy Senator Soto brought the item and happy that Carlos Magoya has brought forward some information about Thriving Minds, and of course to Commissioner Hayman, who's been working so actively with Judge Leifman on all of this. So I'm just in support of moving forward on more mental health resources for our community at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Diaz, Thank
you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I second the motion, Commissioner, the Senator's motion, because I understand the need, and it's an incredible need in our community. But I think we've all talked about it pretty much, and I think Mr. Migoya has cleared it up pretty well as to that. We need to make this permanent. We need to move it forward, and it is incredible the need that we have. And I want, if possible, Mr. Migoya and Senator Soto, if you could look at also finding a way to working with the veterans. I know, Mr. Migoya, you guys work with the VA on certain things. And if you could find a way, I know that it's 20% up on suicide between the veterans. And this has gotten to that point where it's a very bad situation. And once again, I also applaud Senator Soto for coming up with this idea that's already seems to be going on, as Commissioner Hayman said before, and followed by the Vice Chairwoman that said the same thing. I think it's an incredible idea, an incredible need in our community. A lot of people are not handling stress that well, especially when they don't know their future and what could happen. And nobody, like I've said many times, nobody's got that crystal ball very clear right now to know what's going to happen in the future. So if there's ever a need, it's now. And I'm very glad to hear, Mr. Migoya, that you're working along, I guess, with the Senator and, of course, Judge Leitman and Commissioner Hayman. I know that you've been an incredible lead on this in our community. And it's good ideas to help a population right now that has so much need, as the Vice Chairwoman said before. I am very supportive of this. That's why I immediately seconded. But I'm sure our Senator is going to, I believe, I don't know if he's going to defer this until he gets all the information that Mr. Migoya and the South Florida Behavioral Unit puts on. Another thing, as this works out, again, to link with all respect with the military and so on, but one of the things that's important, and I don't know, and like Commissioner Sosa said, Vice Chairwoman, Mr. Migoya, you've been dealing with this, and you all been dealing with this, but if there's a van, hopefully there's no markings on it that, the people might not be so suited to jump in and talk to the people in there. So I don't know how it's done or how it's worked. It's just a suggestion. So once again, I second Senator Soto's motion because I think it's an incredible idea. But if the Senator is deferring, I'll second the deferral.
Okay, Senator, you want to defer the item until you have time to meet with Mr. Migoya?
I think that this has to be deferred. We need to talk some more. I'm in full support of the judge. We're friends. We're all friends here. So this is for the good of the order, for the good of our community. We are, this community is not that simple. And I've been around, I know what I'm saying. I've been through all the hoops, too many years here, involved in all these matters. And I've been also around in the other life with as Commissioner Diaz was saying, the military people, all the individuals involved in all these kinds of chores for the country and in wars and things. And there's a combination of many things here. Some of you don't know about those things. Some of you do, some of you don't. And we live in a community that it has all the ingredients to have a big problem. Hope not. One day we have had that before, and I don't want to see that again. Jackson is a great place. I'm in full support of Jackson always, as anything. I mean, even before I came here, okay, in the House and in the Senate and everywhere. Even many of you ever thought about getting into politics. I was there, and I've seen that, and I work with all of that. So talk to me about Jay Wise and the Jackson people and all that. Probably most of you don't know who Jay Wise was. Jay Wise was the biggest thing that happened to Jackson ever. So I can tell you a lot about these things, a hell of a lot. We need mental health here, a lot, tons of it, for all kinds of reasons. So whatever we can do to improve the situation, and that's why I said, let's see how we can do that with Jackson Health Systems, and let's see how we can move on with that. In support of Jackson, of course, of Judge Liebman, all of the above. But we need to provide to this community. I've seen that too many times, and I just saw it recently, last week, in the heart of my district. So I don't want to see any of that. And unfortunately, I do know a lot of people with mental problems because of the things that I've been involved with in the past. And I can tell you a lot of stories that I'm not going to tell you now. But we have problems, and we have problems. So I'm just trying to, they say that an ounce of prevention. Prevention is the word. In medicine, prevention is the best word. And this is prevention. So let's see how we can prevent problems here. Mental health is a big problem here in this community, whether we want to realize that or not, but it is. So we need to do something more. We need to overhaul the system, big time and fast. So this is the only thing that I'm trying to pursue. We need to overhaul the system. It's not that we're doing anything bad. We're doing things good, in the right way. But we need to do more of that to prevent problems and to be able to move on smoothly in the proper direction. Thank you very much. Yes, defer the item.
Okay.
Second on the deferral, Madam Chair.
And moved and second on the deferral. We still have a queue, and hopefully what we're talking about now is on the deferral, which overrules the rest of the conversation that we were going to have. So Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam. Yeah, on the deferral, the truth is, a couple of items ago, we were talking about how we're not spending the money. For a couple of months, I've been saying that we haven't been spending the money that it looks like we may not. We have been assured time and time again by the administration that once all these applications and process and everything goes through, the money, we're going to overspend what we have. I thought in this particular instance, it was a worthwhile shot, and I thought it's a good idea to spend it on this. I don't know how many of you get the notifications of the police calls, the incident reports that happen in your districts, but I have been getting quite a few of suicides. And when you get 29-year-olds, 30-year-olds, people locked up, maybe they've lost their job, they can't. I don't think this is a bad thing to do. Well, we haven't really been spending the money. And if we can save a life, and we've been talking about this, I mean, we have a curfew, we have this, we have everything to save lives. this could, in effect, help save some lives. So I get the reports, and I cannot tell you how many I've gotten, but I can tell you, because I read them every day when I get them, that I've seen quite a few of them, much more than I used to see. There was months that I didn't see any, and I have been seeing quite a few. So if the senator wants to defer, well, then that's his choice. It's his item. But I think this is, like he said, prevention. This would have been a good item to do so. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Jordan on the deferral.
Actually, I was going to second the recommendation for deferral, and I also wanted to let you know I have to leave the meeting, Madam Chair.
Okay, we're about finished. So, okay, so it's been moved and second for a deferral indefinitely until the senator brings it back. Anyone wish to record no on the deferral? Okay, it's been deferred.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moss?
Madam Chair, I also have to leave the meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Moss, you recognize.
Yes, Madam Chair. I have to leave also, and I wanted to see if I could take up item number 7.
That's exactly what I'm trying to do. That's what's next. So item number 7, I'm going to move it.
It was moved by Chairwoman Edmondson, seconded by Commissioner Moss. On this item, I don't see any hands. It's a resolution. Anyone wishes to be recorded no? Without objection, special item number 7 is approved. Back to you for special item number 8, Madam Chair.
Okay. Special item number 8 has been moved by Commissioner Moss.
Move it.
Second by Commissioner Martinez. Anybody?
I have a
any
question.
comment?
Yeah, just a question on this item, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Bobo?
Commissioner Moss, we're not, this is just the CARES Act money. We're not using any property tax money to backfill this?
No, through the chair, no, this is just the CARES Act money, and I meant special item number 8, Madam Chair, not your item number 7. But this is special, this is CARES Act money, and all we're doing is just wrapping the 2 programs up into one program.
Okay, because I know at one of the previous items that we had, not on this agenda, the previous item, Commissioner Higgins' item, we had amended it to make sure that we didn't use property tax money to backfill. I just want to make sure that that stays, I don't know if that's to the attorneys. If we're wrapping these up 2 together, the same thing prevails, that we're not going to use property tax dollars later to backfill.
Which attorney wrote this?
Madam Chair, this is only CARES Act funds. There is no provision for taxpayer dollars.
Well, it's all taxpayer dollars, just not property taxpayer dollars. I got you.
Correct, Commissioner.
Okay, good. Thank you, Commissioner Moss.
Okay.
I'll move the item.
It's been moved and second. Anyone wish to record no? Okay, that item passes. And the last item is special item number 9 from the mayor's office. Can I get a motion on that?
I move it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded by the chair. Anyone wish to record no on the ratification of the coronavirus?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Martinez?
One question to the county attorneys, if I may.
Go ahead, sir.
To the county attorneys, this orders that we're approving today has nothing to do with the recent orders given by the mayor, by the governor, and mayor's interpretation and changes to it?
Commissioner, I believe this does include Order 30-20, which was issued in response to the governor's order on Friday. So that order is in front of you today.
Yeah.
Okay, in that case, my vote is good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, it's already been properly moved and second. Anyone wish to record no?
No.
I see 1.
One.
2. Okay, it's 2 no's.
Those 2.
Okay, it passes. All right, Commissioner Moss, we're ready to adjourn. I think we covered everything, right, Madam Attorneys?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Move it.
Okay, meeting is adjourned.
You go, Madam Chair.
3:54 p.m. Bye, everybody. Thank
Bye.
Hello, I'm Teresa Marsenberg. This is Capital Update, a review of state government for the week ending Friday, September 18th. The week ended with a sign of hope that Florida's economy may be on the road to recovery from the pandemic. As more businesses reopened, Florida's unemployment rate dropped from 11.4% in July to 7.4% in August. The national unemployment rate is higher, 8.4%. The report released Friday shows 1,178,000 people lost their jobs in the first 3 months of the pandemic. Now, more than half of those jobs are back, but that still leaves hundreds of thousands of people without work. For many who lined up early in the pandemic, state unemployment payments have run out, and now an extra $300 a week in federal emergency funds is running out almost as soon as it began. The DeSantis administration decided Florida could not afford to pitch in the required matching funds.
It's kind of like a potluck, what are you bringing, right? And if you want to eat at this extra feast, if you want to eat at this extra table and sit at this table, you got to bring something with you, okay? The problem is the majority of what we were bringing belonged to the house that we were eating at.
Right now, only 19% of Florida's unemployment claims are covered by state funds. The rest is federal, and the program that provided the extra $300 a week for unemployed Floridians requires a 25% match.
I'm Mike LaQuia. Following an order from the Supreme Court, the governor appointed a new justice, Jamie Grosshans, to the state's highest court, although it's not the judge he wanted for the job originally. Representative Geraldine Thompson filed suit challenging his original selection of Renatha Francis.
The Judicial Nominating Commission, which is comprised of some of the best lawyers in Florida, certified her on that list in good faith.
However, the Supreme Court unanimously found that Judge Francis failed to meet the constitutional requirements for office since she had not been a member of the Florida Bar for 10 years. The court requested that the governor select a new justice by noon on Monday. After that time passed with no announcement, the court gave him an order to comply with the law. The deadline has now passed. It appearing that the governor has yet to comply, we hereby issue the writ of mandamus and order the governor immediately to comply with the court's order of September 11 and to certify his compliance to the court by 5 p.m. today. The governor introduced Justice Grosshans at 5 p.m. that day.
I guess under the court's most recent precedent, I guess you were a justice starting yesterday because they said selection's the same as assuming off. Oh, I guess we can figure that out some other time.
The last 2 years, Justice Grosshans has served on the 5th District Court of Appeal. She was also a trial court judge in Orlando. She quoted U.S. Supreme Court Justices Clarence Thomas and John Marshall.
Judicial power is never exercised for the purpose of giving effect to the will of the judge, always for the purpose of giving effect to the will of the legislature, or in other words, to the will of the law.
Representative Thompson called the appointment of Grosshans over Francis a victory for the state constitution and the rule of law. She also blasted the Judicial Nominating Commission that in January gave the governor a list of Supreme Court candidates to pick from that included only one African American, who ultimately did not meet the Florida's constitutional requirements for the job.
The Judicial Nominating Commission has to take equal responsibility for where we are. They stacked the deck. There were many highly qualified African Americans who were on the list, who applied, and the JNC did not include any of them on the list.
All members of the JNC are appointed by the governor. Senator Perry Thurston has called for all 9 commission members to resign and to reform the membership to also include people appointed by the Florida Bar. As for Judge Francis, the governor called President Trump and asked him to consider making her a federal judge in South Florida. For Capital Update, I'm Mike LaQuia.
I'm Giovanni Hampton. The October 5th deadline to register to vote is right around the corner. And now that courts have ruled that a completion of sentence includes fines and fees, voting rights advocates, lawyers, and lawmakers are stepping in to help those with past felony convictions.
We want them to be able to vote. We need to make a more transparent, easy process for them to understand exactly what they need to do in order to complete all terms of sentence.
Senator Jeff Brandes sponsored Senate Bill 7066 in 2019, which further defines that voting rights shall be restored only upon completion of all terms of sentence, including parole or probation, fines, fees, and restitution.
The people without money, this is something that's going to impact the rest of their lives because they can't ever walk away from it.
The Fines and Fees Justice Center research shows the clerks of courts only expect to bring a fraction of the total owed in fines and fees. The state law allows a person to ask a judge for a waiver, or a judge can convert the fines to community service. But thousands of dollars in fees could mean more than a lifetime of community service hours.
Fines and fees that are owed after like 90 days, they go to a collections agency, a private collections agency that then adds another 40% surcharge on top of the original debt that's owed.
The United States 11th Circuit Court of Appeals concluded that the law passed by the Florida legislature in 2019 does not violate the Equal Protection Clause. It does not impose a tax on voting, and they also rejected the arguments that the law denied felons due process.
I disagree with a lot of it, but I also live in reality. The reality is we have a Republican-controlled House, a Republican-controlled Senate, a Republican majority cabinet, and a Republican-leaning Florida Supreme Court. So, it's like the German philosopher Hegel said, the state is the reality.
Lawyers across the state are offering pro bono services to assist felons, including state lawmaker Senator Jason Pizzo.
It is a process. Based on people's economic circumstances, they can do an indigency form, which allows them to have the services without payment or without paying some of the costs. And then we do a motion for modification through the court. The court signs off on it. Money's still technically owed, but not for the purposes of voting in a lot of cases. And we're able to do it, very efficiently.
The court's decision will impact over 700,000 felons who were projected to register and vote by October 5th. Lawyers representing plaintiffs in the case say the ruling will be appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. For Capitol Update, I'm Giovanni Hampton.
Damage assessments are underway in Florida's Panhandle after Hurricane Sally dumped as much as 30 inches in some areas. Downtown Pensacola streets were underwater. Some 300,000 people were without power and bridges were closed due to damage, including the heavily used Pensacola Bay Bridge connecting the city to Gulf Breeze. Florida's governor was part of a group Thursday touring the damage by air and says rising rivers will continue to be an issue for those Northwest Florida counties.
There were definitely areas where you still had a lot of standing water, like down in Perdido Key. You kind of had homes and there was just water. It was almost like the home was an island.
Just hours after the storm came through Wednesday, members of Florida's National Guard arrived in the hardest hit areas to help. First responders also had to help evacuate an assisted living facility that lost power. While Hurricane Sally bashed Pensacola, the strength of financial markets have put Florida's catastrophe fund in great shape if multiple storms strike the state. That's according to the director of the state's bond finance, who says a very competitive market has allowed Florida to hit a grand slam in capturing favorable financing. Ben Watkins told cabinet aides on Wednesday the state received $1 billion more than expected on the financial market, and the fund could cover $17 billion in losses.
We're within shouting distance of being fully funded, and we've never incurred that level of losses, ever. Even when we had 8 hurricanes in 2 years back in 04, 05, the order of magnitude of the losses was in the aggregate about $7 billion. And that was an historically extraordinary event.
The cabinet aides met ahead of the cabinet meeting scheduled for September 22nd, the first face-to-face cabinet meeting since February.
Today's a great day. I saw kids in classes this morning.
But I can tell you, for thousands of your employees, it has not been a great day. And it will not be a great day until we feel safe.
Some Palm Beach County students returned to class Wednesday for the first time since schools were shuttered back in March due to the coronavirus. By Monday, September 21st, tens of thousands more will be face-to-face with their teachers, and by October 5th, that number will swell to hundreds of thousands as all schools in Miami-Dade and Broward counties reopen.
This is the date that you keep on hearing now, October 5th. It is the date that we get funding for how many students are sitting in our classrooms. And we believe that this is pressure from the governor, from the Department of Education, because they have wanted all schools to be open from the beginning. And so now they're rushing.
In South Florida, teachers are delivering some of the same messages others across the state have shared for months about not being supported in their pleas to return to a safe work environment.
Schools have not received their plexiglass barriers for teachers' desks. got mine.
A request to fire Palm Beach School Superintendent Dr. Donald Fenoy and other top administrators brought community members, school leaders, and state lawmaker Bobby Powell out in a show of support for Fenoy Wednesday night.
There probably were missteps, but it starts at the top. The recommendation that schools reopen started with our governor. Our Secretary of Education, Department of Education, Richard Corcoran, pushed for this.
When you try to please everyone, you end up not pleasing anyone. Messages become blurry and tensions rise.
Dr. Fenoy, who sent teachers a video address that some called degrading, acknowledged communications can improve, but
your tone was harsh, snappy, and some of the things that you said angered myself and other teachers.
She asked Dr. Fenoy to also deliver a message to parents of virtual school kids.
The school day starts at 8 o'clock and it ends at 2. Not 8:15, not 9:30, not 10 o'clock while the child is in his pajamas and then he's trying to eat cereal and can't pay attention. Also, make sure the children have on underclothes.
Still others preparing to return or already in Florida's classrooms continue to ask this question.
How will our county handle when the spread gets rapid, when people are severely sick and cannot come to work? And then the worst case scenario, what will you do when the deaths start happening? When a child dies and when employees die?
Statewide, Florida's teachers union is in a legal battle with the Department of Education over its back-to-school mandate. Meantime, the rest of Florida is several weeks into the new school year, and some teachers, parents, and lawmakers say they're not getting proper resources and guidance to protect students and staff from COVID-19. State Representative Geraldine Thompson voiced her concerns Monday during a virtual press conference hosted by the Florida Democratic Party.
So we need smaller classes. We also need to look at options such as staggered start times so that you don't have all of the students in the brick and mortar classrooms at the same time.
Thompson and others say they have repeatedly asked the Department of Health for data on how many students and staff have contracted COVID-19 in schools but have yet to receive it. Many districts have created their own COVID-19 dashboards with infection data. On Friday, the Florida Education Association gathered teachers, staff, school board members, and parents for a virtual appeal to state leaders.
We are going to do everything we can, and we are not going to stop speaking up for our students and for the people who work in our schools until we get these issues addressed.
The union has also sent a letter to Governor DeSantis calling for funding flexibility and no budget cuts. They also want to end simultaneous classrooms where teachers are required to educate students online and face-to-face at the same time.
See that the teachers are just online when they're just stretched very thin, and all that anxiety that they're facing, the kids are sensing it, they're in their heightened anxiety. This isn't good for the emotional well-being of anybody involved. And it's heartbreaking. And I don't know what the answer is, but it doesn't seem like this is working.
The State Board of Education is meeting in Pinellas County Wednesday, September 23rd, where some of these issues may be addressed. The Florida Channel is planning live coverage.
I'm Krista Brown. Across the state, bag lunches and prepackaged items are replacing hot meals in school cafeterias as lunchtime looks different for kids attending school in person.
We're seeing some schools pivot to having all the meals in the classroom. We see an increased number of lunch periods so that there are less students in the cafeteria. We've even seen plexiglass dividers on the tables to try and ensure that kids stay socially distanced while they're having their meals.
Lakeisha Hood with Florida's Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services says there are options galore for students as schools navigate federal breakfast and lunch program requirements modified by COVID. The department serves as a facilitator for federal funds for those programs, and recent waivers extended by the USDA allow districts to keep running free meal programs that look similar to what they did this summer.
It allows schools to transition to the summer food service program, which we brand here in Florida as the Summer Break Spot program. And with that, they can now serve all of their meals at no cost to students in communities all across the state.
Waivers also allow students enrolled virtually to pick up free grab-and-go meals curbside. And over the summer, districts used buses to deliver meals to kids who couldn't access them. But what that looks like in a few months, Hood says, is anyone's guess.
Honestly, we'll just have to wait and see. So we do have the flexibilities on the National School Lunch Program through the end of the school year, which will take us through June 30th of 2021. However, the summer break spot flexibilities that we received on August 31st will end on December the 31st. And hopefully before then, we'll get some additional guidance or feedback from USDA about what happens next.
Options and participation vary from district to district, and information about the National School Lunch Program can be found at the department's website. But regardless of how requirements are modified or changed, Hood says the mission remains the same.
We're going to do everything possible between ourselves and the schools that we work with and community partners to make sure that every child in this state gets fed.
For Capitol Update, I'm Krista Brown.
I'm Destiny Burt. This week, Florida is taking another step towards normalization by opening bars and breweries with limitations after months of being closed, except for a short 3-week stint in June.
All of a sudden, we get a notice, you're closed right now. No like 3-day notice or nothing, you're closed today.
After shutting their doors in March due to COVID-19, bars were allowed to reopen in June. But when the number of infections began to rise and some owners didn't follow protocol, the state ordered all bars to close, something the governor and secretary of the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, Halsey Bouchier, say will not happen again.
We're going to be more actively patrolling and trying to look where things are happening ahead of time, so that way we can be in front of the curve. The idea is we just don't want to punish the good actors for the handful of bad ones.
Bashir says enforcement agents will be patrolling from 4 p.m. to midnight. Bailey operates a popular bar near Florida State University in Tallahassee. He and others say they have a zero-tolerance policy for those that don't want to comply with the rules.
If we see people getting in too big of a crowd, we're going to tell them to dissipate and separate. If they're not wearing a mask, we'll tell them put on your mask. If they're not cooperating, there's the door. Get out.
Following an order allowing visitation again in long-term care facilities and nursing homes, the Agency for Healthcare Administration ended a biweekly test requirement for employees, and on September 15th stopped providing COVID-19 tests. The federal government is expected to provide some testing, but the costs are shifting to operators who must meet federal requirements.
As the world changed, we realized it was going to be a business expense. The first priority is the safety of the residents. And, sometimes that's going to cost money.
Also, the 23 state-supported isolation facilities for COVID-19 positive residents will be phased out based on the dramatic decrease in positivity among residents and staff in long-term care facilities, the significant reduction in the number of individuals hospitalized for COVID-19, and increased hospital capacity. Effective September 18th, 18 of those facilities located in northern and central Florida are no longer admitting COVID-positive patients. The remaining 5 facilities in South Florida will stop accepting patients next month. For Capitol Update, I'm Destiny Burt.
During the state university system's September Board of Governors meeting, you could see the financial impact the pandemic is having on Florida's higher learning industry. The state has instructed universities to make plans to reduce current operating budgets by 8.5%. In response, the board is looking at other ways to generate more revenue, including increasing tuition. According to the national organization, the College Board, Florida ranks second lowest when it comes to undergraduate prices.
If we allowed that $6,352 tuition and fee to drift up, and therefore we would go lower in the ranking, what impact would that be relative to our first place nationally, our first place standing?
It's not so much how you're positioned against the next state up. It's about how you're positioned against states who are doing better at other metrics than you are.
One veteran board member warned against tuition hikes, describing a time when the state legislature reduced financial support.
We tried to make it up on the backs of the students by raising tuition. It's taken us a long time to reverse that. And I think we have to be very, very careful that we don't go back to that type of a scenario.
A 1% tuition increase would generate about $7 million for the system. A 1% general revenue reduction is $30 million. So it takes a lot of a tuition increase to offset state support.
On the other hand, cutting costs isn't so easy either.
For example, a lot of times I think in the last recession, one of the first things to go was things like counselors and advisors, the soft stuff. But that's exactly contrary to what you would want to do if you're focused on student success.
Committees also considered budget requests for the 2021-2022 fiscal year, and some committees considered trends they've seen from previous appropriations. For example, state money for facilities has decreased over several years. The plan is to use all state facility dollars to help finish covering costs for new buildings already in the works, such as this new building for the School of Business at Florida State University. The Board of Governors would then use leftover dollars from previous years for renovations and repairs on older buildings. The full board meets again in November. For Capital Update, I'm Josie Barroso.
Duval County School Safety Assistant Program was challenged in 2018 by several families who contend the armed school guards are inadequately trained and will put children in danger. The First District Court of Appeal listened to arguments from plaintiffs this week who said state law bans guns on school grounds and doesn't specifically exempt guardians from the law. Duval County school lawyers disagree.
Looks like the legislature wanted guardians to have weapons and to have them on campus. Why else would they have all this training? Why else would they have to have a license? But they don't come right out and say it. It's almost like if it walks like a duck, sounds like a duck, well, maybe it's a duck, but the legislature didn't actually say it was a duck specifically. So what are we as a court to do with that?
Well, Your Honor, to go with your duck metaphor, we have to look at the fact that it has feathers, it has webbed feet, and it is quacking.
In 2018, the legislature required every school in the state to have at least one armed official after the Parkland shooting where 17 were killed. Lawmakers offered several options, including a program to train civilians, school staff, and teachers to become armed guardians. Secretary of State Laurel Lee says at least 5 counties are set with the new Omni ballot system, which allows blind voters to cast their ballot independently.
These counties include Orange, Pinellas, Volusia, Nassau, and Miami-Dade. These supervisors are to be commended for their collaborative efforts to participate in a pilot program for a system that promises to increase voting accessibility for voters who are blind.
Omni Ballot is an electronic method of delivering and returning ballots by a secure online portal. On Wednesday, the elections workshop also included discussions about vote by mail. Organizers of elections can rely on federal funds during the pandemic.
Exercising social distancing, so this would be like tape that you need to mark off the 6 foot to minimize congregation of lots of people, and crowd control and line management, cleaning and disinfecting surfaces, including.
And they say federal dollars are still being distributed to individual counties. Every year, law enforcement officials search for hundreds of kids that go missing. Some are never found. On Monday, Governor Ron DeSantis and First Lady Casey DeSantis joined families, educators, and law enforcement virtually for an opportunity to remember missing children, as well as recognize the state's efforts to protect children from harm.
While Missing Children's Day is a day of remembrance, it's also a day of hope. Hope to make child abduction a thing of the past in our state. Florida has and will continue to be on the forefront of innovative measures to ensure the safety of our children.
And Netflix, a popular streaming service, to one of its foreign films. The critically acclaimed French movie called Cutie sparked controversy when a Netflix, which we're not showing, promoted the 4 young protagonists in suggestive poses. People claim the movie hypersexualizes the lives of the 4 11-year-olds the film follows. The director has defended her film, saying it's a critical look at children's expectations in a social media-driven world. In the letter to Netflix, they write, "The movie whets the appetites of those who wish to harm our children in the most unimaginable ways they say they've had to prosecute." Here's a look at more state government action this week. The Florida Citrus Commission shared good news about the production and consumption of orange juice this year. Both have increased. That's despite job losses, cost increases, and other factors impacting the industry. During a quarterly meeting Wednesday, staff discussed trends and reported a 12% increase in retail sales over last year. This chart tracks the monthly spikes in sales beginning in March, which are contributed to the coronavirus pandemic and the increased demand for what they describe as wellness drinks. The commission has faced criticism in the past for a lack of diversity. New, more inclusive and culturally diverse marketing presentations have been launched in recent months to attract wider audiences. Former Governor and now U.S. Senator Rick Scott has teamed up with U.S. Senator Marco Rubio on a daylight saving time initiative in Congress. Clocks are set to fall back 1 hour on November 1st. But the senators say with the impact of COVID-19 putting a national pause on the time shift until November 2021 could help provide families with some stability. This isn't Florida's first attempt to stop the clock changing plan. In 2018, the legislature asked to keep Florida in daylight saving time the whole year. Approval has to be given by Congress, though, who has yet to take up the request. And throughout the state, many are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, which started September 15th. Florida's Agriculture Commissioner held an event in South Florida with Hispanic farmers, issuing a cabinet proclamation to recognize the month-long event. Meanwhile, the First Lady is continuing to collect student artwork and essays for the annual contest. This year, the theme is celebrating untold stories and contributions of Hispanic Americans in Florida.
Barbara Lagoa was the first Hispanic woman in history to be appointed to the Florida Supreme Court of Justice and has since been appointed by the President of the United States to serve on the United States Court of Appeals. Carlos Muniz, who was appointed as the first Nicaraguan American justice to serve on the Florida Supreme Court, and John Curiel, the son of Cuban exiles, appointed to serve on the highest court in the state.
The contest is open until September 25th with cash and scholarship prizes. Teachers can also apply for the Excellence in Education Award. More information can be found at floridahispanicheritage.com. And that's going to do it for this edition of Capitol Update from all of us here. Thanks for watching.
Welcome to the program Get to Know Your County Commissioner. I'm Jeanette Perez. Today we're taking you to Tropical Park, where Miami-Dade District 10 Commissioner Senator Javier Soto will be updating us on projects that are improving the community and discussing issues that affect our county. Senator Soto?
Yes, the goal is to have cameras in all the parks, security cameras, in all the parks of District 10. The reason for that is to bring another level of security to our families and everyone who goes to our parks. Parks are an essential part of our lives, and they must be totally safe. The Westchester Cultural Center here on my back, it's under construction right now. It's a great thing that is happening to our community. Not only this part where we are, but the whole community around it. The Westchester Cultural Arts Center will be a tremendous addition of good stuff, of quality of life to our families and to our people in Miami-Dade County. Good stuff for the county, for the people of the Miami-Dade County. As you know, we have a killer virus going on right now. This virus has really changed life. The parks, we are so lucky to have so many good parks in Miami-Dade County. So many good parks that are safe, that are beautiful, with a lot of activity, chances of different sports. It gives the family another addition to the quality of life, another positive item to these families who pay taxes, who live here, to enjoy the surroundings of Miami-Dade County and to be able to leave their homes. Sometimes they are very enclosed in their homes with the families, and they need space. They need to go out and enjoy life.
As always, we thank Senator Soto for his time and important updates. That's all for this edition of Get to Know Your County Commissioner. For more information on county programs or services, call 311 or visit miamidade.gov. And be sure to connect with us on social media. I'm Jeanette Perez. Thanks for watching. Hola y bienvenidos al programa Conozca a su comisionado. Yo soy Janet Pérez. Hoy te llevamos al Tropical Park para encontrarnos con el senador Javier Soto, comisionado del Distrito 10 del Condado de Miami-Dade, que nos va a hablar sobre algunos proyectos que están mejorando la comunidad y temas que afectan a nuestro condado. Adelante, senador Soto.
Sí, los parques del Distrito 10, que son parques seguros, ahora van a ser más seguros todavía, porque hemos instalado en el Distrito 10, en 10 o 12 parques del distrito, el distrito tiene 25 parques, cámaras de seguridad. Estas cámaras que están conectadas con la policía del condado van a brindar otro nivel superior de seguridad a estos parques. La meta es tener cámaras en todos los parques para que podamos vivir completamente seguros de que no va a haber nada que pueda dañar a la familia y a la gente que van a los parques. Este centro que ustedes ven aquí a mi espalda, que está bajo construcción ahora, que va muy rápido, va muy rápidamente, debería estar terminado en un año aproximadamente. Este centro va a traer un nivel de calidad de vida muy superior a toda esta área. Este centro que va a tener un teatro de 150 lunetas, 150 asientos, va a tener también aulas o salones para entrenamiento sobre todo de niñas y niños y gente joven en la parte cultural, bien sea danza, bien sea drama, bien sea instrumentos musicales, piano, trompeta, saxofón, violín, cualquier tipo de instrumento musical. Va a ser un estupendo centro para actividades culturales en esta área. Esto es crucial, esto ahora, de poder salir con la familia, ir a un parque y tener esa expansión, esa habilidad para que los niños puedan correr y puedan jugar y puedan las familias estar a distancia y disfrutar de este clima y esta belleza que es el condado de Miami-Dade. Esto le da a la familia una calidad de vida extraordinaria. Yo creo que esto es muy importante, el tener unos buenos parques en este momento en este condado.
Como siempre, es un placer hablar con el senador Soto. Agradecemos su tiempo y sus palabras informativas. Ya se nos acabó el tiempo de esta edición de Conozca a su comisionado. Para obtener más información sobre cualquier servicio del condado, llame al 311 o visítenos en línea en miamidade.gov. Y no se olviden seguirnos en las redes sociales. Yo soy Janet Pérez. Gracias por acompañarnos.
El uso de las máscaras y la distancia social ayudan a salvar vidas. Algunos piensan que solo en teoría. Otros sabemos que la ciencia lo ha demostrado. El control de la pandemia del COVID-19 depende de cada uno de nosotros. Ponga de su parte. Ayúdenos a salvar vidas.